What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Tactical Tortoise. My name is Trevi, and as we continue our coverage of the 9th edition Space Marine and Necron Codex release, the floodgates have opened, and the full Codex is now available online. The scans have come out, and we can take a look at all the meat and the potatoes in this glorious book of Warhammer 40k rules. So this is going to be me going through the entire codex. We're going to look at some of the changes and some interesting combos. I'm not going to be editing this video quite as much, and it's unscripted, obviously, so it might be a little rambly. So if you can stick with that, then good on ya, and we'll just go through all the rules in the Space Marine book and talk about how sweet they are. It's going to be very exciting. Obviously, earlier in the week, I talked about rules that I thought were particularly interesting or cool, and that was just based on the previews from Goonhammer that they had posted in their blog. I'm going into this mostly sight unseen. Obviously, I did read through all of the previewed changes, but I haven't actually looked at the codex before doing this recording, so we're just going to dive right in. Obviously, we have a rules page here. Looks like it just functions as a glossary, and I really like this. Also, kind of organizes the book a little bit better. But I don't think there's much actual rules content here. It just tells you what is in the book, which is nice. Here's a sample army for Combat Patrol. That's cool. Obviously, Combat Patrol becoming a big thing on this channel, at least in our community Discord. So if you want to come play an army that looks almost exactly like that, come on, join our Discord. We're running Combat Patrol tournaments right now. We're playing billions of games of Combat Patrol. It's super fun. Everyone's having a really good time. We have an 80-person Combat Patrol event, everyone. That's insanity. That's so many freaking people. Holy crap. So, yeah, that's what we're going to talk about, Combat Patrol. Here are the detachment abilities. Looks like this mostly will stay the same. The company command rule to maximize your captain and lieutenant models is here, so no spamming smash captains anymore. Stop that, and then describes chapter tactics. Okay, very exciting. We'll go through all of the chapter tactics here. Dark Angels automatically pass combat attrition tests. It looks like they'll still fail their morale tests, so they'll still lose one model to morale, but combat attrition will not apply. It looks like that. I think that is how it was errated in 9th edition when the edition came out anyway. So I don't believe that's a change. And then they can reroll, or they get +1 to hit. Oh, that's good. +1 to their attack roll if they did not move. And that is any attack. So that's not just ranged attacks, reroll ones anymore. That's all of your attacks. You get +1 to hit. That is a straight buff. I mean, we've seen a lot of these already. So none of these are going to be particularly new for anyone because these were spoiled on Warhammer Community ages ago. White Scars can advance and charge and fall back and charge and get -1 to hit for advancing with assault weapons. Spaceless get +1 to hit on the charge and heroically intervene. Imperial Fists ignore light cover, so it is sort of clarified here that they don't ignore dense cover. In the previous version, they ignored cover adding to your saving throw, which means that they sort of automatically ignore dense cover, but that it's so it didn't. It's not really a change, but it is a nice clarification. I think they ignored heavy cover in the previous version, so maybe a little bit of a nerf. I don't know. Crimson Fists get +1 to hit on big stuff. That's not a change, and they get exploding bolter shots. Yep. Black Templars reroll advance and charge rolls. So they reroll advance rolls now, but they don't reroll the charge rolls. Any dice for the charge, which is a little bit of a nerf, and then they ignore mortals on 5s. Blood Angels +1 to advance and charge, +1 to wound when they charge or heroic green. Flesh Terrors get the +1, and they rend basically in melee, or they tear. I guess it's not a rend. They rend and tear until it is done. Iron Hands are the same as 9th edition. Ultramarines are the same. Salamanders are... obviously, Salamanders did change to reroll 1 wound roll instead of 1 hit and wound because Master Artisans was changed. Raven Guard got a big overhaul. When you're more than 18 inches away, they receive the benefit of light cover, and that's everybody. That's your vehicles too. And then Infantry also received the benefit of dense cover if they are on or within a terrain feature. So that's good. There you go. We don't have any of that. The awkward situation in as rules is written, where they got both light and dense cover if they were more than 12 inches away from you, as per the 8th edition Codex, is gone. That's very nice. Death Watch, reroll 1s to hit against Tyranids, Eldari, Orcs, or Tau. Okay. Cool. Surprised if you'll see any of those for a while. And then they get to reroll 1s against one battlefield roll. So that's been changed not to be their whatever the rule was called, special tactic. And now it's just their chapter tactic. I wonder if they'll still have the support to be able to change that. I probably will have a stratagem for it or a warlord trait, but we'll have to see when their supplement comes out. Currently, we just have the index for them, and it is not very exciting. It's too bad because I'm a big Deathwatch fan, and I very much enjoyed playing Deathwatch in 8th edition and in the start of 9th. I actually stopped playing Deathwatch basically solely because this book was coming out, and I didn't want to, sort of get used to the old rules. And then this book came out, and I wish I had played some more Deathwatch because their index is real bad. So, if depending on how long this video goes, we'll talk about the indexes that have been released on Warhammer Community after we go through the book. But we'll just have to see how long this video ends up being. We don't want to make it too long. So these are all the Successor chapter tactics. +1 to hit when they charge. So that's a Space Wolf tactic. That's very good. Reroll hit rolls of 1. That's old. Duelists for basically transhuman physiology all the time for infantry. That's very good. +1 to advance and charge. Combat attrition automatically passes. Preferred enemy. So that's a Deathwatch one. I think that's new. Rapid assault. No penalty for advancing and shooting assault weapons. That's interesting. That might actually be a playable one. I guess you'd probably just take White Scars if you want that. But given how good auto bolt rifles are, the value of assault weapons is going up pretty hardcore. And just being able to throw that one away if you're taking sort of an intercessor spam unit, people a lot of times advance with those intercessors, and ignoring that -1 to hit is a big deal. That's just a lot of extra sort of chip damage that you get into your opponent's army, especially against their chaff infantry. Inheritors hasn't changed. You just get a normal chapter tactic. Signs of the Forge. Double their wounds. Stalwarts is the same as the old Blood Ravens chapter tactic, which is a really cool one that no one took. Very sad. Stoic +1 leadership. And I believe there is a change. You reroll combat attrition now, so a lot of these effects, and they shall know no fear instead of the other version. So a lot of these effects, I don't believe, will be very particularly relevant because just Space Marines have always not been super hurt by morale, so it's not really ever been a big deal for them. So any of these abilities that buff your morale have just been like a throwaway. It's kind of filler garbage. And then you can fall back and charge. Oh, so you can just build White Scars. I guess you don't have advance and charge in here. Never mind. Warded and Whirlwind. All right, so those are mostly the same. The big change was Master Artisans, right? And we talked about that in the previous video. You reroll 1 hit roll when resolving attacks with Master Artisans. Like I mentioned in the other video, in 8th edition, you sort of just assume that you're rerolling all of your attacks all the time anyway, because you have a Chapter Master. Now that the Chapter Master has been nerfed pretty significantly to only affect 1 unit, and it costs a bunch of points, as we're talking about right here, then it might still be relevant, especially if you're taking things like Relic Contemptor Dreadnoughts, are just these really big, powerful individual weapons. That thing only shoots 4 times. It hits on 2, so it probably hits 3 of them. You get 1 reroll with Master Artisans. We'll see if Relic Contemptors would continue to be good. I think a lot of people are talking about actually dropping them, which is interesting, but because the standard dreadnoughts are now significantly more powerful. I'm going to mostly skip over these because I think they've been talked about ad nauseum. The chapter command, so instead of spending CP to upgrade your characters to their special super version, you now spend points and increase their power level. We have Wise Orator. which you get plus. So Wise Orator has been changed to reroll failed litanies to +1 to get them off, which is a little bit of a nerf. It means that you fail 1 in 6 rather than 1 in 9. So it's about 50% more likely to fail. But on the other hand, you get this commanding oratory stratagem that you only need to spend 1 CP on, and that automatically passes a litany. So you can, if you really need to get one off, if you really need your +2 to charge, you can just boom, knock that right out. And then you can also recite an additional one. I believe the relic is garbage, yeah, so who cares about that? Master of the Forge, some people were talking about. You can give +1s to strength and attacks to dreadnoughts, which is really cool. If you want to build around sort of a dreadnought base, and then dreadnought's remaining core, or be getting the core keyword, means that a lot of your other auras will also affect them, so you can build sort of a big tanky army with dreadnoughts. That's really fun and cool. This guy heals for a flat 3 as well, and he has you can deal mortal wounds to vehicles if he takes the relic, which you probably won't. And then Chapter Master, the big one. I actually think, so this is sort of a stealth buff in some situations, the Chapter Master, the change to the rule. So the rule changed from being a 6-inch aura that affected everything inside the aura and gave them any full rerolls to hit, to you pick a unit in your command phase, it gets full rerolls to hit for that round. The reason that that's a little bit of a buff is that you can move out of that aura and still be affected by it. Because it obviously it doesn't say that you reroll while within 6 inches. You just pick a unit within 6 inches and then they get it. So he orders the people to reroll their hits and then they go and do their thing. It's kind of like a Imperial Guard order, except it hits in a better phase, in your command phase rather than your shooting phase. So that's in most situations it's going to be worse because it can't affect your whole army. You're not going to use your stratagem to increase the size of your aura. You're not going to be using the relic, the Primaris relic, to increase the aura to a 9-inch full reroll bubble and hit your whole army with it. But you can, if you have an aggressive army, you can keep the Chapter Master relatively safe. He can sit on a back objective or something. He can order somebody to reroll, and then they can go do their thing. So in some circumstances, it is going to be a little bit more powerful. We talked about sort of things like aggressive units, jump pack units, a lot of times would just run right outside the aura if you didn't have a jump pack Chapter Master. And this is going to be... and it's going to be able to affect them now, which is nice. So in some circumstances, it's not quite as bad as people sort of assumed it is. I mean, the big hit, I think, is for extra 40 points, because you're going to be spending like 200 points on this model, which is a lot. So we'll see how it ends up. You also get him in addition to your other captains, which is very cool. He's exempt from the chapter command rule, so you can bring a second Smash captain alongside your Chapter Master, which you probably, I mean, a lot of times you'll be doing probably. And then obviously his Relic and Warlord traits are pretty good. You gain a command point on a 4+ every round. So it's probably a net of 1 or 2 command points every game. And then Angel Artifice, which gives you +1 wounds and toughness and a 2+ armor save. I don't know, that one's a little bit more situational, but if you want to build like a tanky Smash Captain, you absolutely can build it into a Chapter Master build like that, and you don't even have to take Salamanders to do it. Chief Librarian can combo Psychic Mastery and Neural Shroud to get +1 to, basically +1 to cast and deny, which is very nice. +1 to cast. If you are bringing Librarian, I think you probably want this on him, because you'll probably be building him around some specific spells, and just making those more reliable is very important. So otherwise, it can deny an extra 1, which usually doesn't really matter, and it knows an extra power, which is nice, but not super necessary. So that Psychic Mastery Warlord trait is actually a really big deal, I think, for Librarians, and we may see them slowly eke back in, depending on what the specific chapter psychic disciplines look like. Obviously, some of them in 8th edition were very powerful. The Salamanders one was extremely good. Iron Hands was pretty decent as well. I mean, a lot of them had some very relevant powers, especially that worked into the game plan of the chapter. And we'll see if those return, and if they do, I think we will see Librarians slowly come back. Unfortunately, they do stop you from taking Abhor the Witch, which sucks, but I mean, that's an issue with Abhor the Witch more than it is with Librarians. The Chief Apothecary can revive somebody for free, brings them back at full wounds using the stratagem. Everybody's talking about using that on ATVs right now, because ATVs are 8-wound bikes for some reason. So that's pretty silly. You can also heal 2 times instead of once. which is pretty good. What we talked about in the previous video, though, is that apothecaries have their 6-inch ignore wounds on a 6+ aura built into their profile, so they don't need the Warlord trait to do that anymore. So there's not quite as much of a reason to upgrade them to the Master Apothecary. Chapter Ancient is interesting. This is usually the guy, I believe in the past, that you use to give obsec to all your guys. It looks like that's still a thing. So Steadfast Example gives core units objective secured within 6 inches, and if they already have objective secured, they count as an additional model. Oh my god, that's actually really gross, to be honest. You basically you count intercessors, like a 5-man intercessor squad counts as 10 models on an objective, which is very difficult to take off. It affects core units. So I think previously it only affected infantry, which means now it affects dreadnoughts. So you have objective secure dreadnoughts, which is really pretty dumb. I mean, if we're talking about that build with a bunch of dreadnoughts sitting sort of slowly marching up the table, this might be a guy for you to give them all obsec. That seems solid. That's just basically a straight buff from how it was in 8th edition, and you already saw that guy occasionally to give obsec to your dudes. I think there is another Warlord trait to give obsec to things, so maybe not specifically the Chapter Ancient, but it being in an aura is much better than the Warlord trait, which I believe you have to pick a model with. And then the Chapter Champion. This is, probably the least exciting. It's just he makes the champion better at fighting, right? He gets +1 attacks. He goes to 5 attacks, so 6 on the charge. Leadership get +1. That doesn't matter. And he rerolls wounds against characters. He gets -1 to be hit in melee. Yeah, the Chapter Champions have always just been sort of a rocket. You can get him up with this like Strength 7, 3 damage power sword, which is very cool. You can Imperium Sword that guy to be Strength 8, which is a really good cutoff point to be. And he just comes in as a absolute slam. So the Warlord trait gives you reroll charge rolls within 6. Okay. That's a very good Warlord trait to have access to, but I don't know if you want to take a Chapter Champion to do it, especially since you already have a couple other mechanics to guarantee your charges. I don't know if you really want a Chapter Champion, but if you're taking one, I think the upgrade's only like 15 points, right? Company Champion, yeah, it's 15 points. So it might just be worth it just because it's not very expensive. +1 attack on a guy that you're expecting to do a bunch of damage in melee is pretty okay for 15 points. That's not even the cost of Attack Marine anymore, though, so maybe you're going to be strapped. We'll go through the stratagems real quick here. I think a lot of them we've talked about previously. You get reroll hits against Heretic Astartes, very nice. Under the Chapter, Assault Intercessors double fight. Only 2 CP now. That's, I think, what we missed in the previous video. So you might actually be angling Assault Intercessors to do that, although there's not a very good delivery system for Assault Intercessors. It's not like Vanguard veterans that have a jump back and can jump up in your opponent's face. Assault Intercessors are ground pounding. Unless they're in an Impulsor, and then you're spending 2 CP to double fight 5 models, which is usually never a good trade. Unless there's a Thunderhammer in there or something that's really punching really hard. I don't know if you really want that too much. Unfortunately, I think the chapter will not be being honored very, very often now. But we'll see how it goes. Maybe 10-man intercessors, assault intercessors, just punching into people is okay. Fury of the First get +1 to hit with Terminators. And this means this is Terminator models in the unit. So it looks like this is probably going to be the equivalent of the same stratagem that's been cropping up in basically every Space Marine supplement. And that I think it used to call out things like Wolfguard and Deathwing, and now it just says Terminator models in a unit. So that might actually, I think that's like a situational buff. I don't believe that you could spend it on units that included Terminator models but didn't have the Terminator keyword themselves. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But that means that if you have like a Deathwatch kill team that has 2 Terminators in it, you could be spending that 1 CP to give those Terminators +1 to hit, which is okay, I guess. Interesting. All right. Transhuman Physiology, bit of a side grade. It got a points break if you're below 5 models. Is that right? Yeah, 5 or fewer models. Which means that if you're spending it on characters and things like that, it's going to be 1 CP. And honestly, people mostly take 5-man intercessor squads to fill troops allotments anyway. So This is just mostly a straight buff. The downside is that it doesn't work on firstborn units. It only works on Primaris, which means that you can no longer transhuman your Smash Captains. You can no longer transhuman. I think Deathwatch Veterans is the one that kind of kicked me in the nards. But so I'm really not excited about 1 CP transhuman going down all the time. I am excited about it not being used on Smash Captains, but I do think that you're going to be spending a lot of CP on transhuman physiology playing playing Space Marines in 9th edition, especially if you're taking like 5-man heavy intercessor squads to set on objectives. Those guys, it's 1 CP to transhuman them, so it's basically free, and you just get to sit there and give your opponent a middle finger. That's gross. Rapid fire is a big one that I guess I'm sort of excited about. You get to double tap intercessor squads. It used to be in the previous edition, this doubled the rapid fire value of your bolt rifles for 2 CP, which was a good stratagem, and meant that, a unit of intercessors with a couple wound buffs on them in Tactical Doctrine would just kill a vehicle a lot of times. But it required you to take the bolt rifle intercessors, which after auto bolt rifles got a points decrease nobody ever took. Now you can double shoot auto bolt rifles, so you shoot 60 times, and if you get like a Catechism of Fire on them, they're winning a lot of vehicles on 4s at AP1. That's just, 60 shots is just gonna, it's just gonna kill a lot of vehicles. So that's gross. It's a double tap stratagem rather than a double your attacks stratagem, which means that it's just functionally better because you get to retarget the second shot. It's not like you attack everything all together. You shoot, and then if you kill it, you can double shoot into something else. It is at the end of the shooting phase, just like most double shoot stratagems, but that was not one I expected Space Marines to get, but there you go. We got an endless cacophony in Space Marines. Gene Rock Might looks exactly the same. Unyielding in the face of the foe is a new one. You reduce, or you get +1. It's basically it's similar to the Salamander stratagem that increases their armor save. Looks like any damage 1 characteristic weapons you get +1 save against. So I don't know who's shooting 1 damage shots into a Gravis unit anyway. Maybe that double tapping intercessor squad might be doing it, but so this is purely in the mirror match. Maybe we'll see that used, but that's actually really gross, especially since heavy intercessors I think are going to be popping in a lot more often. Eradicators already exist, and you don't really want to dedicate like really heavy shooting to 3-man units of Eradicators, but if you don't, they're going to be 2+ save and not die. So Gravis is really coming back in a big way. Aggressors, I think, are probably moving out, but a lot of the other Gravis units are going to be very popular, and giving them +1 save is pretty good. It is situational, though, so I don't know how often it's going to be used, but Armor of Contempt is the same, only in Death and Duty End is a little bit different. It looks like, going through the supplements and things, they've removed basically every fight after you fought already ability from the game. So, for example, a little bit of a spoiler, Wolfen did get a big nerf. They can no longer Death Frenzy if they've already swung that turn. So a lot of times with Wolfen, you would charge into something that you couldn't kill in the first swing. You would hit it, like a big knight or something. You would hit it with Thunderhammers, kick the crap out of it. It would hit back and kill 1 or 2 of the Wolfen, and the Wolfen would swing and kill the knight or whatever. You can no longer do that. So, meh. I think that's good, especially for the characters. It was annoying when the characters would go in with the intention of only endeathing to they would throw themselves underneath the sword of something so that they could double swing and kill it for 2 CP. That was frustrating to play against. So this, I don't really have as big of an issue with this. Some of the other removal of the other double fight stuff is a little annoying. Like Honor of the Chapter getting nerfed kind of annoys me, and I am sad to see Wolfen nerfed because they were, I think, fringe playable in 9th edition. Obviously, they're still good, and people are winning tournaments with them, but they weren't as good as they were in 8th, and that's too bad. Looking through some of these other Epic Deeds stratagems, you have Power of the Machine Spirit, which top profiles your Machine Spirit vehicles. Very nice. Wisdom of the Ancients gives you either Rites of Battle or Tactical Precision. It used to only give you roll once to hit, which was nice, and it affects your... you have to use it in your command phase. Very cool. It doesn't work on Wolfen and Death Company Dreadnoughts, but otherwise it's just any Dreadnought, and they get reroll once to hit or wound. All right, very good. You can use that on your Relic Contemptors. You hit on 2s, reroll 1s now. Sick. Don't even have to have one of those captains over there. Commanding Oratory. So this is the one that the Master of Sanctity gets for 1 CP instead of 2. So you use it on a chaplain that has not recited a litany, so it has to be their first litany, basically. They recite one litany that has already been recited by a friendly model. It is automatically inspiring. So I believe that this supersedes the litanies that the chaplain knows. You just pick a litany out of the list to recite. I'm not 100% sure, though. I think that's some question. That'll probably be a day 1 errata. But for 2 CP, you sort of expect to give you some flexibility. If it's 2 CP to automatically pass a litany, that's a steep price, to be honest. Combat Revival brings you back a infantry or biker within 3 of an apothecary. That you get that for free with the Master Apothecary, and that's what everyone's really annoyed about, being able to be used on ATVs. Also good on just regular. Any biker obviously is going to come back with full wounds and just be annoying to kill. Outriders are 5 wounds, so they're like, or 4 wounds, so they're even, also difficult to kill. Basically, all of that stuff's going to be annoying. Relic of the Chapter makes a return. You can give an additional chapter relic out. You cannot use a stratagem to give a model 2 relics. If you're playing Strike Force, you can use it twice, or Onslaught, you can use it 3 times. I apologize, everyone. I'm going to have to look up which point size Strike Force is. Is Strike Force a regular size game? Who knows? Let's take a look. It looks like it is. Yeah. So, oh wow. So that's really good. So you can relic up the chapter twice. Ugh. Okay. I mean, I imagine that the intention of this is that it replaces. Oh, well, it used to be that 1 to 3, right? Okay, never mind. That's not. So it's just a points break if you take 2 relics now. It used to be that it would be 1 relic for 1 and 2 relics for 3. But then a lot of times there was a second stratagem out of the chapter supplement to give you special issue war gear, I think, if you were a Successor. And so you could just, it was a confusing mess of relics. So now you just get it twice. So yeah, I wonder if that will replace the chapter specific relic stratagems. I imagine it will. So that's good. Hero of the Chapter, you get an Adeptus Astartes model, and you determine a Warlord trait for it. You cannot use a stratagem to give a model 2 Warlord traits. Okay, but that still leaves the. So this is Hero of the Chapter. Looks like has not changed, although you can use it twice. Oh man! All right, so it has changed. Just kidding. You get 2 extra Warlord traits potentially for 2 CP. That's a big difference. So previously in 8th edition, obviously you could give your Warlord a second Warlord trait, and then Hero with usually a chapter-specific ability, and that would require that Warlord trait to be from that the chapter lineup. And this one, and then Hero of the Chapter would give another character a Warlord trait. So you could potentially have 3 Warlord traits. You get the free one, the Warlord would double up, and then one other guy would get it. Looks like you can take 3 on different models, and that still opens up the possibility of having like an exemplar of the chapter effect to give the Warlord a second Warlord trait. Oh my god, that's gross. So we're going to be Warlord traits all up the wazoo up in here, everyone. Jeez. You can fall back and shoot with Bikers, Land Speeders, and Storm Speeders for 1 CP. Oh boy, that's good. Hammer of Wrath. You have to roll equal or above units' toughness characteristics to deal mortal wounds. So you can't try to automatically hit somebody for 1 if they have like a Land Raider or something. But if you hit infantry, you can kill a couple of them. Probably still not very useful, but that's okay. We'll just run through these really quickly. You can shoot and perform an action for 2 CP. I don't think that one's going to be used very often. Usually your infantry squads are like 5-man intercessors, and shooting with them for 2 CP is not very exciting. You could shoot again with them for 2 CP, for that matter. Steady advance. When you move, you're considered to have remained stationary. This used to be specifically only for bolter discipline. Now it counts you as stationary for any purpose, but it is owned for 2 CP instead of 1, so that's a little different. Adaptive strategy. If your Warlord is on the battlefield, you can count all doctrines as being active, so that's very good. But it is 2 CP. A lot of these are pretty expensive. Suppression Fire, that's a 1 CP. You can only fire Blast. Okay, so that's it. You just stop people from overwatching your set to defend. So Suppression Fire, you actually can't double tap the Whirlwinds anymore. Suppression Fire specifically just stops Overwatch set to defend and fights last in the fight phase. All right, that's fine. Terror Troops lets you mess with objectives if you're Reavers. That's sick. We talked about that in the previous video. I really like that mechanic, although I don't think it's very good in this case anyway. Guerrilla Tactics lets you redeploy Phobos into Strategic Reserve at the in your movement phase. That's amazing. That's really good. I'm very impressed with that. Orbital Bombardment. Interesting to see if that's different. Doesn't look like it. You pick. Use it in your command phase. Select one point on the battlefield. Place a marker. Oh, and then at the start of your next command phase, it hits everyone within 6 inches of the marker. Okay. If it's within 3 inches of the marker, you get +1 to hit. And on a 2 to 5, suffers D3 mortal wounds. On a 6, it suffers D6, and the marker is removed. Okay, so that's, I think flavorfully, that's a little bit more interesting. It does more damage, but it it gives your opponent a heads up. They see the missiles coming. Because it hits the round later, 1 round later. So you can use it for area denial, but honestly, D3 mortal wounds a lot of times isn't really that good. Yeah, your opponent will just make sure that their characters aren't within 6 inches of the orbital bombardment token, and then they'll be okay. Aspect Scan is a little bit the same. It's the end of your opponent's reinforcement step, and you can shoot at anybody who jumped up. So it's a little bit more flexible than previously, but we knew that. Tremor Shells was changed, so it actually works now, which is good. But unfortunately, Thunderfire Cannons are very bad, so you probably won't be taking it. I like these stratagems because I think they're very fun and flavorful, but man, do they not seem very excited. If you have shock grenades or land speed or storm, you can stop your opponent from overwatching and then give them -1 to hit. And that's in your shooting phase. I mean, -1 to hit for 1 TP is pretty good, but we'll have to keep a lookout for what has shock grenades. I think it's the Phobos stuff. Land speed or storms are actually playable right now for 1 CP to make -1 to hit. Maybe that's okay, actually, the more I'm thinking about it. But -1 to hit generally is not a particularly powerful effect right now because a lot of things give -1 to hit, and they don't stack anymore, so maybe it's not super useful. Assault launchers. This is another very interesting stratagem. Lets you. Your opponent has the choice of either eating D3 mortal wounds for 1 CP, which, to be fair, is not a very good trade, so you probably won't be using it, or they get -1 attack, and they cannot fire Overwatch. Most of the time, you're just going to eat D3 mortal wounds, so that's probably not going to matter. It also requires an Assault Launcher unit, which I think is like Assault Centurions and Land Raider Crusaders, and it doesn't work on monsters, so you're like, okay. But I'm getting sort of flashbacks from Dawn of War when you'd fire the assault launchers on the Crusader, and just the entire front of the vehicle would explode, and that was very cool. And I think this captures that effect pretty well. It's not very powerful, but for 1 CP, I mean, you can't really be expected for it to be super powerful. We've Melt-A-Bomb. You can use the stratagem in the fight phase when the unit with the Melt-A-Bomb, which I think is basically any tactical style unit, any of the Firstborn Marines. But we'll have to, once we go through the data sheets, we'll have to take a look. You make a 1 attack with that model, and then only 1 attack with that model, so not even just 1 extra. And then if you hit a vehicle, you do D3 mortal wounds. So this is actually a much better trade on these Smite style psychic powers. A lot of times it's like 1 CP for D3, and most of the time those are unplayable. That's like Demon Shell, Hellfire Round, those style stratagems, Flak Missile. This is, obviously, it has some more hoops to jump through. You have to hit a melee attack, which is not that hard. You have CP to reroll it if you really need to, but it does do 2 D3 mortal wounds. So you're probably chunking a vehicle for 4-ish, which is a pretty good rate for 1 CP. If you're playing Ultramarines, assuming that they have martial precision still, you can automatically hit that attack, which is pretty nice. And obviously, you have access to rerolls and stuff like that. So that's actually very playable, and it's just in the fight phase when you swing. So, I mean, you could potentially, like, assuming that Vanguard veterans have it, which I assume they do. I think there's a Melt-A-Bomb in that kit. You're charging a tank or whatever for 1 CP, and one of those guys, instead of swinging his dumb chainsword at it, just chunks it for a whole bunch, and then your Thunderhammer finishes it off. It ends up making those jump pack infantry much more efficient at killing vehicles, which I think is very good. But we'll have to keep an eye out for what actually has that keyword. Grab Pulse is the new impulsor thing. Looks like you can fall back and shoot with your repulsors, which is good, or you can give your opponent -2 to charge. So it's kind of a Tanglefoot grenade effect, which is very nice. I mean, honestly, Grab Pulse in 9th edition very rarely came up because you are either already too close to the enemy, so it didn't really matter, or you just weren't charging. You were just shooting people because melee is not very good right now. So the Gravitic Backwash ability didn't really do much. So having it, folding it into a stratagem is pretty fine, and also at the same time making it so that your repulsors can fall back and shoot for the use of the same stratagem is very nice. Plus, it basically counts as 2 stratagems here because it's either your movement phase or your opponent's charge phase, which means you can do both of them in the same round. So it's it could have been two stratagems, but it's actually 1 here, which is fine. That's not really a change that really matters. Hellfire rounds, you shoot with a heavy bolter, and it deals D3 mortal wounds. Okay. Now that it does 3 mortal wounds to monsters, which is new, but now that heavy bolters are 2 damage, you might want to just shoot their regular profile because you have a non-zero chance of doing 2 damage to a vehicle or something with that. So I don't know. It feels sort of like a downgrade because the heavy bolter profile is so much better. But a lot of times, like in 8th edition, you would just take a heavy bolter for access to Hellfire shells in case you needed it, and now you're just not going to do that. Flak missile deals 2 D3 mortal wounds to aircraft instead of D3 to fly. I believe what it was in 9th ed or in 8th ed, and you get +1 to hit with the missile. That's pretty decent. Again, that's a pretty good rate. That's going to ignore hard to hit basically with that +1 to hit. And that also means that you can stack an additional +1 to hit off of it. So if you have Recitation of Focus or something active on that unit, they're going to be +2 to hit, which cancels out your +1 and gives you +1. So that +1 to hit is actually a little bit better than -1 to hit is, which is a little bit weird, especially if you have overlapping effects that do the same thing, which is kind of weird to think about. But so you could potentially hit this thing on 2s and then, chunk a aircraft for 3 or 4 mortals, which is very nice. Smoke screen, use this in the shooting phase, in your opponent's shooting phase when you're targeted, and you get -1 to hit. So this is, a lot of people were saying it's sort of unfortunate that you now have to smoke screen for CP, but this is a straight buff to the smoke bombs and smoke launchers mechanic. Previously, you had to stop yourself from shooting. It was usually a once per game ability, and you had to declare it during your own shooting phase, so your opponent would just not shoot that unit. And now you can do it when you're targeted, and you don't have to not shoot. So it's straight money. I actually think this is a really good stratagem. It's gonna any of your smokescreen units. So that probably is most of the tanks. Now, unfortunately, tanks got a whole boatload of nerfs in this codex, so they're probably still not playable. But having -1 to hit, like basically it's 1 CP lightning fast reactions. Everyone, that's so good. That's so good. That's so good. But unfortunately, you have to take a tank. Although, actually, a lot of Dreadnoughts have it. A lot of Dreadnoughts have smoke launchers on the top. Oh, no, that's so disgusting. Oh, my God. You have 1 CP lightning fast reactions on Dreadnoughts that are already constantly Duty Eternal. So Duty Eternal just turned into -1 to be hit. Disgusting. So we'll have to keep up, once we go through the data sheets, what actually has the smokescreen keyword. But, it's disgusting. Go through Warlord traits real quick. Fear may manifest, affects leadership. Who cares? Imperium Sword is basically the same. Your real charge rolls and +1 to attack and strength when you charge. Iron Resolve is the same, +1 wounds, and you have a 6+ wound ignore. Champion of Humanity, you get +1 attack and +1 to hit and wound against characters. Okay. That's also very good. And I think that is mostly the same. Storm of Fire. It's a little bit changed. It only affects core units. Each time you make a ranged attack, an unmodified wound roll improves the armor penetration by 1. Okay. Very nice. We haven't. I don't know where the combat doctrines rules are, because it's going to be interesting whether or not that stacks. Here we go. We can take a look. It looks like in 8th edition, your combat doctrine weapon bonus didn't stack with any other AP bonuses, and Storm of Fire was specifically called out in that. It was weird that they put a Warlord trait into the book that didn't work with the core mechanic of the faction. But I mean, sometimes if you didn't have your doctrine active, it would be okay. Whatever. It was just a garbage ability, to be honest. But it looks like now I don't see. Oh, here we go. Nope, down here. Unless otherwise specified, the bonus is not cumulative with other rules that improve armor penetration, e.g., Storm of Fire Warlord trait. All right, so Storm of Fire is still unplayable garbage. So between it's that and the Flesh Terrors rending ability, right? Both of them do nothing, basically. Oh my god! Unless you're making attacks with them outside of the correct doctrine. But, jeez. All right. Well, probably don't take Storm of Fire. Rites of War is the other big one everyone was talking about. You get within 6 inches. It doesn't choose. I think, similar effects used to choose. But now it's just while your core unit's within 6. You get objective secured. Okay, so it's slightly worse than the Chapter Ancient version, but it's just a regular Warlord trait. You don't have to take an Ancient to take it. All right, so that's really good. Ugh. So, so we have easy access to full OBSEC Space Marine armies, which is disgusting. If anybody's played against Custodies right now, you know how gross that is, where you can just run bikers up and take your objectives away. And it's also units, and units, not models, so you can chain back to that guy and give the whole unit. If you're trying to sneak some Outriders or something in there, that's pretty gross. The Vanguard Warlord traits. So this one just gives you old school character protection, which is cool. You get +1 to hit for 1 Phobos unit within 6. Unfortunately, the Phobos units aren't very. You don't really want to be attacking with them. They're mostly for running around and taking objectives, so that's not usually very good. And it only affects ranged attacks, not melee attacks. So I don't know. These are usually bad. +1 damage, I think, is usually pretty good because you can have the mastercrafted 3 damage Stalker Bolt Rifle and shoot for 4. You get to one-shot 4 wound characters with that. You hit Firstborn Chaplains and stuff like that, they just die, which is pretty good. Shoot and Fade, I think I've seen this used a couple times, especially with Ex Tenebris on the Phobos Lieutenants. So they get a hit and run. They can run in and out of buildings with that assault weapon and shoot your characters. That's pretty good as well. And then Lord of Deceit lets you redeploy units. I believe this got upgraded so that you don't have to redeploy them back into your deployment zone, but it looks like it is before the roll to go first, so it's not quite as good as rapid redeployment. And then Master of the Vanguard gives +1 to charge for Phobos units, and you get +1 move. All right. Well, if you're building, unfortunately, you can't build the double move Reavers list for White Scars anymore, where you temporal corridor them around the table. And then +1 to move, advance, and charge would be in reroll charges, or just move and advance. Yeah. It would actually be pretty reasonable for that, but no, you don't get that. That would be potentially +2 inches of threat. So, I mean, the threat's still there. You can charge after temporal corridor, but you can't fight, so it doesn't really matter. It just gets you on objectives and stuff. The specific chapter Warlord traits, I mean, most of these are going to be baked into the normal chapters. I guess we'll take a look at them real quick. The Dark Angels one rolls back your Doctrine by 1, so you can stay in Devastator Doctrine for an additional round. And if you build a list that's flexible in multiple doctrines, that's actually really good, because then you can use it to its greatest effect. You can take Devastator Doctrine for 2 rounds for something, and then once you get to Assault Doctrine, you can roll back to Tactical for one of your squads of shooting. Very nice. White Scars, on a 2+, you deal a mortal wound when you charge. Cool. Nobody, that's garbage. Get that out of here. Chikorian Storm probably still exists, and Hunter's Instinct probably still exists, so you'll just take those. And maybe Master of Snares, I don't know. Space Wolves gets +1 attack when it's engagement range of vehicles, and when it attacks them, gets +1 to hit and wound. Very nice. I kind of like this new templating that they have. While you're within engagement range of X, you get +1 attack. So when you gather your attack pool, basically, it'll trigger, and then you can attack something else. You'll still get that +1 attack, but if you attack the thing that you want to attack, you get an additional benefit. I think that cleans things up a little bit, and it's sort of wordy, but it works mechanically better and raises less questions, I think, than previously. Because a lot of times it would be like, if it just said when you attack a vehicle, you get +1 attack. Like, what does that mean? Because every attack in 9th edition is resolved independently. Do you double your attacks against vehicles? That's confusing. So this just makes the most sense. I think that templating is actually a little pretty clean, to be honest, which is not something I say all the time. Let's see. Yeah, we'll just see if there's any really good ones. Looks like Vigilance Incarnate here. You can pick a Deathwatch core unit within 6 each time you select in your command phase. So you just get to pick an additional battlefield roll to get reroll ones again. So it's sort of like a Tome of the Ectoclades, kind of a little bit. I like that Deathwatch they didn't previously have a way to reroll ones against dedicated transports, which was occasionally really awkward, and now they can, so that's very good. Sometimes you'd run into, especially Adeptus Mechanicus, sort of at the tail end, and they were running like 6 Scorpius Dune Riders, and you'd be like, I want to roll ones against those, but I can't do it. No. But now you can, so that's nice. Black Templars get 6-inch Heroic Interventions. That's as it was. Crimson Fists. You can reroll on a 4+. You come back to life instead of using any other rules that trigger when a model is destroyed. So you cannot only in death. But if you've already swung, it doesn't matter. That's kind of awkward, though, especially since it's a 4+, and that's unrerollable now. Ultramarines get Adept of the Codex, so a 5+ CP regen. Salamanders get +2 strength. Iron Hands, Adept of the Omnissiah. You get... you get to repair an additional wound on vehicles or okay. So you get to reroll. Sorry, this is a long thing. You get to repair one additional wound off of what you would normally repair. So if you normally don't have a repair and you repair 0, you repair 1 instead. And if you're a Tech Marine, then you repair D3 +1. That's not very good. And then the Flesh Terrors get D3 extra attacks if you have 5 enemies next to you. Unlikely, but then I don't know, sometimes. And Blood Angels get Fight First. All right, so most of those are the same as they were. Relics. Let's skip over a lot of the relics. Armor Indomitus looks like it has not changed. Shield Eternal has the new Storm Shield rules. Standard of the Emperor Ascendant. Looks like it hasn't changed. Teeth of Terra, I don't believe has changed. I think that was AP2 previously, right? So that's the same. 3 extra attacks, +1 strength, 2 damage. Very, very good relic that everyone's taking all the time. I really like these the gun relics, to be honest. I used to take them as often as I could in 8th edition when I played Space Marines. So this is like a rapid fire 2 bolt gun. So shoots 4 times at 2 damage -2. Very exciting. Burning Blade went down to AP -5. Okay. That's an unnecessary AP value, but you got it, buddy. Purgatorus is a 3-shot bolt pistol. Very nice. Relic of Gethalamor screws Psychers again. When you are within 18, it gets -1 to cast, and when you fail a psychic test roll on D6 on a 4+, you suffer D3 mortal. So you sometimes randomly perils yourself. If you perils on Snake Eyes, you take Duty 3 after that triggers, which is annoying. But -1 to cast for psychic tests within 18 is really gross. You can combo that with a Calexi's Assassin now, because those were used to break doctrines, but they don't now. The new doctrine ability said so. So You can be -3 to cast, potentially. And then if Wolftail Talisman still exists, potentially -5 to cast. So good luck getting your 10 Warp Charge Smites off. Ugh, that's gross. So this might see a little bit more play if people are building Psychic Defense into their list without taking Psychers, so that they can unlock Abhor the Witch. Then the Relic of Gathalamor, I think, has been catapulted back to playability. It was taken occasionally in 8th edition, but not very often. For a while, I think the Primaris. Oh no, you couldn't stack the Primaris relic with it. That was it. The Bellicose Bolt Rifle is the same. It's a -1 AP bolt rifle. It shoots 4 times for 2 damage. Very, very cool. I've taken this one before on the Primaris Captain data sheet that has a bolt rifle, and it's fine. If your opponent brings in, deep strikers and stuff, that guy fighting them is actually really annoying. Especially if you're staying in Tactical Doctrine. It's AP2 for 2 damage, so it actually just rips like a half of a Intercessor squad off the table every time it shoots. It's actually a really gross gun, I think. Lament is the Stalker bolt rifle. And it does an extra mortal wound on the target when it hits. Or when it wounds successfully. So that's so when you roll a successful wound roll based on the new wording, so you just need a 3+ to wound most characters on that. It deals 1 mortal, and then it could be 4 damage if you're if you take the Warlord trait on the Phobos guy for +1 damage. And then this is a camo cloak. You get -1 to hit, and you can move across models when they're not there. Okay, Torm of Malkador knows additional psychic power. That's the same. Benediction of Fury. The Crozius deals mortal wounds now on rolls of 6. So straight buff to the Crozius, to the Benediction. It's pretty good. Gets to Strength 7 still with Mantra Strength, if that's still in the Codex. I haven't looked. And then here's some other stuff that doesn't really matter. Vox Spiritum is the extra range and aura abilities, but I don't think that's really going to matter anymore. Librarius Discipline, I think most of the stuff hasn't changed, so we can probably go through it. Psychic Fortress got a really big nerf randomly. It's a 6-inch aura for a 5+. Oh no, it's not Psychic Fortress. Excuse me. Oh no, it did. Okay, interesting. I think I was thinking of Psychic Fortress. It used to give you a 4+ ignore against mortals, but now it's a 5+ invulnerable save. Okay, that is actually better. But the 4+ save against mortals was really good against the list that took them, so it was a good sort of flex pick. But now it's only chapter units. It's not chapter core units, which I think is pretty important to note. So you can be giving that to vehicles, potentially. Huh. And it is models. Oh, yeah, it's models in a unit. So, yeah, you can. That's actually really playable psychic power now, I think, if you're playing vehicles. And that's a reason, just noting, that's a reason to upgrade to the Master Librarian so that you can get that +1 to cast, so that goes off on a 5 instead of a 6. That becomes very reasonable to get off. It sucks on top of 1 if you go second because you don't get it, you don't have it. But once it's active, that's really good. Interesting. All right. Yeah. Very, very playable psychic power now, actually. Going down to Litanies. Litany of Faith looks like hasn't changed. When you lose a mortal wound, you take on a 5+. You don't. Instead, Catechism of Fire. When you attack the closest target, add 1 to the attack wound roll. Okay, so this has actually changed quite a bit. Obviously, all of these only affect core and characters now. The difference is that this used to be closest visible target. So if you are indirect fire, it wouldn't do anything, because if you were sitting inside a building, you couldn't see anything, so you had no visible targets. But if you could block your own line of sight to something, you could shoot it. Or if your opponent had something that was like right up in your face but behind a wall, the Catechism of Fire wouldn't trigger on that. You'd shoot something else and get it. Now, it's only the closest target. Oh, it's closest eligible. What does that mean? That's an awkward thing. I guess that does mean visible. You're not an eligible target if you can't be seen, unless you have something that targets indirectly. So I guess that's just been reordered to work with indirect fire. Okay, it's a little bit awkward, but sure. Okay, so it is just a buff, straight up a buff to the Catechism of Fire. So it basically works all the time now. It never doesn't work. Exhortation of Rage, +1 to wound. That's a big buff as well. We talked about in the previous video. Mantra of Strength is the same. +1 attack, strength, and damage. I don't believe it added to damage previously, so your Crazy Circanum is 4 damage. That's really good. Ugh. So that's a big buff. Okay, sure. That's solid. So you get with the Benediction of Fury, you get to 4 damage, strength 7, probably 5 or 6 attacks. Yikes! Yikes spikes. Okay. Restoration of Focus. Yep, +1 to hit. With ranged attacks and Canticle, +2 to charge, extra 3-inch consolidates. Yep, those are the same. Chapter approved rules. So these are the secondary objectives. Follow all normal rules for secondary objectives. Oh, but interesting. So these ones, unlike the mission specific ones, these ones have a category and they replace the ones in that category. Okay, so these are actually way worse than I expected them to be. I thought these, just looking at the previews previously, I had assumed that these would be in their own category, basically like the mission-specific ones, but it doesn't look like that's the case. So you have to take these instead of these categories, which you would probably not do. I think the core ones are generally better. Okay, well, there you go. That's too bad. But yeah, we'll see if they become playable. It looks like they're meant to be playable in GT packet, but we'll see if there's a specific FAQ about that. I'm gonna go ahead and skip over Crusade stuff because I don't have any experience with the Crusade format, and I don't know the rules off the top of my head. So I would butcher it if we talked about Crusade stuff. There's a lot of it though. Holy crap! Maybe I should get into Crusade. We're playing Combat Patrol all over the place already, so maybe Crusade's not that much of a step. So looking through the basic abilities here for data sheets before we get into all of the units. We have non-compliant chapters. These have units that they specifically cannot take, and they get replaced in their own indexes. So, for example, Space Wolves can't take Devastator squads. They have Longfang squads instead. They have Wolf Guard squads instead of their Stern Guard or Vanguard Veteran squads. They have Grey Hunters instead of Tacticals. So those are all in their own index that's included on Warhammer Community, so go check those out. Deathwatch also get their kill teams instead of a lot of this random stuff. Black Templars just straight up can't take Librarians. Pretty much standard stuff. So I was worried that those would be unaddressed for a while, but GW went ahead and just nipped that right in the bud and released those FAQs a whole week early, so you could get used to your new rules, which is nice. So kudos to them for getting ahead of it and making sure that there weren't any questions outstanding. Although there's going to be a couple in there. So for the standard abilities, they show no fear. You ignore any modifiers to combat attrition. Yeah, that's what it was. So even if you're a below half strength, basically you will still just run away on 1s instead of 1s or 2s. Which is that's fine. Although you already have 2 5-man units, so it does you're either above half strength or you're dead. So I don't know how much that's really going to matter. And also you're the Space Marine. You're never going to fail your morale. So at least you can't reroll your morale. So every once in a while you might actually have to take combat attrition when models run away. So it used to be like you would get it's like a 1 in 36 you'd run away. It's like I run away on a 6 rerolling. Like okay man. But now it could happen. Centurions got taken out of Bolter Discipline. We knew that. Yeah, that's very nice. Shock Assault. Or Centurions got taken out of Bolter Discipline. Yeah, straight up, right? It was shooting models, infantry, excluding Centurion, and remain stationary, or your Terminator Biker. Okay, yeah. So Centurions just straight up can never Bolter Discipline. Okay. That's a big nerf to Centurions. They really wanted to kick those guys right to the curb. Shock Assault, you get +1 to attack when you do stuff. Yep. We already looked through the doctrines, and then there's some deployment abilities. It's nice that these are just spelled out here, so we don't have to spell them on every single data sheet. Combat squads, you can split into 2 squads if you contain the maximum number of models. Perfect. We were talking about in the previous video, somebody commented obviously that you can combat squad Eradicators into 2 squads of 3, so you can take 18 Eradicators and 6 squads of 3, which is really disgusting. Death from above, you get to deep strike, concealed positions, you get to set up pregame, outflank is the same, and teleport strike is the same. Is there any difference between Death from above and teleport strike? Yeah, reinforcement step 9 inches away from any models. Reinforcement step 9 inches away from any models. Weird. Well, you could just roll those into one rule. You could just say death from above / teleport strike right there. Right there, / teleport strike. And then you just save yourself all this space. And you could put a cool picture of a skull there. That's annoying. That's okay, though. All right, we're into data sheets. I think most of these we will go ahead and skip. The Primaris Captain has a Relic Shield. He ignores mortal wounds on a 4. I played against this guy in Combat Patrol the other day. He wrecked my stuff because I was playing Tyranids, mostly focused on as a Smite-focused Tyranids list. And he led the army and took like 1 wound from smites over the course of the game and just refused to frickin' die. It was so angry. He was Blood Angels and had the Warlord trait for +1 damage, so he had a 3 damage Power Sword, which is very good when you get +1 to wound and 6 attacks in the charge. Pretty strong. This is the new Captain profile with the Mastercrafted Heavy Bolt Rifle, so only 1 shot for 2 flat damage. Okay, but he does have the Mastercrafted Power Sword for Strength 5 2 damage, so he actually hits relatively well in melee, which is not something that a lot of the Primaris profiles have done. And also T5 7 wounds. Ooh, that guy's a pain to kill. Gross. So I think it's probably actually playable, although he's probably 6 power level means he's like 120 points. I don't think I'm gonna look through all of the points costs, although I'm sure they're in the bottom of the document. The Phobos Captain looks like it's mostly the same. Ignores Lookout Sir when he shoots his Instigator Bolt Carbine. Although, interestingly, it didn't look like Lament, the Relic version, ignored Lookout Sir. So, usually you would take that guy, or a lot of times, not usually, I said usually you take him for a big no Deep Strike aura. But a lot of times you would take him for Lament, so you could gank people's characters. Yeah. It doesn't ignore Lookout Sir. Okay. Well, that's disappointing. So you could just take this guy for his standard profile gun for 5 damage, for strength 4 damage with the Warlord trait. But you have to get through a strength 4 wound, which is a little bit awkward. Yeah, I don't know. Probably not playable very much. The downside for this guy, I think, a lot of times is that his combat profile is really bad, which has always felt kind of weird to me. He just has a knife, so he gets +1 attack. So he attacks 6 or 7 times, which is pretty good. But he doesn't have a profile on it. It hits on 2, strength 4, no AP, and so he just bounces off a lot of stuff. He kills a lot of like infantry if he gets into him, but that doesn't really matter. You want him to be able to like fight other characters, and he forward deploys, to push up the table, but then doesn't fight in melee. So you're like just give that guy Power Sword, just give that guy the Relic Power Sword, it'd be good. Just like this captain has, this Gravis Captain. So this is another one of the Boltstorm Gauntlet. Boltstorms went to Pistol 3. Is that different? Ooh. Is that, we'll have to, when we look at the aggressor keyword, the aggressor data sheet, we'll have to look at that. A 12-inch range pistol? It's not assault anymore? Oh, no. Oh, aggressors, no. What is that? Terminator Captain takes normal Terminator stuff. He can take a Relic Blade for +3 strength instead of +1 strength. That cutoff doesn't really matter. I guess getting to strength 7 is okay. But he doesn't have a Mastercrafted Power Sword. He just has a regular one, so. All right. And you could take Lightning Claws, Power Fists, Axes, yeah. All the normal stuff. Standard Captain, it looks like Rites of Battle is still a 6-inch aura. So one thing that I haven't looked at, let's go back to the Chapter Master. It used to be that the Chapter Master replaced his Rites of Battle, but now they are fundamentally different rules. Does he do that? Yeah, so Chapter Master still rerolls once to hit for core units in an aura. He just picks one thing to reroll to get full rerolls. So that's not quite as big of a change as I think people expected. Because in 8th edition, he replaced his Rites of Battle with the Chapter Master ability. Standard Captain looks like basically mostly the same. Relic Blade. He could take a Xenophase Blade now. That's exciting. You can't take invulnerable saves. It's 1 damage, though. I'm always interested in that weapon, because obviously invulnerable saves are the way that you survive Space Marine captains hitting you, but for 1 damage, he's not going to kill you with run round of combat for that. Still an interesting weapon if you fight, it's like just dudes with storm shields, just regular Crusaders, Imperial Guard Crusaders. There you go. You kill the crap out of those guys. By captain and a lieutenant. Lieutenant and Phobos and Reaver armor is basically his own thing. He has the shot grenade keyword. He also has a smoke screen keyword. So you can use this guy, interestingly, to get up. And I imagine the same with this lieutenant profile as well. No, just this guy. Okay. So this guy you can use for terror troops. You can also use him for shot grenades. So if you get him right up the table, you can give somebody -1 to hit within 6 inches in your shooting phase. That's okay. That seems fine for a couple points if you're taking a lieutenant anyway. And he has a special issue bolt pistol for -2 damage. All right, buddy. That's a spicy bolt pistol, and he attacks 5 times, 6 when in charge. All right, sick. So yeah, the shot grenade keyword is actually pretty relevant. This guy doesn't have any of those cool keywords. He does have his cool 2 damage rifle, but that's it. Of a Primaris Librarian. He gets a Death Angel. He gets a Deathwing keyword. That's interesting. Is that what Librarians had previously? I didn't know that. If he's in Dark Angels. Standard Librarian is standard. I guess they all get the Deathwing keyword. Interesting. Phobos Librarian is here. They're all here. They're all here doing stuff. These are basically the same as previously. A bunch of chaplains. They know 1 litany from the Litanies of Battle, and they can recite that on the 3+. Okay. Looks like a standard Crozius is +2 strength now, so that's a buff. They go to strength 6 instead of strength 5. That's the cutoff. Really only matters if you're hitting toughness 3 infantry a lot of times, but that does help a little bit. The Crozius felt a little bit anemic in 8th edition, just hitting for strength 5. A lot of times he would kind of bounce off toughness 3. But now it's fine. The Primaris Tech Marine's a new profile. We've seen this I think in a Warhammer community spoiler. He has a bolt gun on his shoulder that shoots 3 times for 2 damage, which is like sick. That's so good. He also has, and you can shoot in addition to other weapons, which is a really big deal. He also has a grav pistol, which goes to flat 2 damage if you have a 3+ save. That looks like a change from the previous grav mechanic, which went to D3 damage. And he gives +1 to hit for vehicles making ranged attacks. So this is the guy you upgrade to your Master of the Forge, right? And then you take the +1 attack in strength aura, you take the +1 to hit in range aura, and you just make a big brick of dreadnoughts and your dreadnought army, which is a really cool. I think that's a cool archetype for a list. I don't know if it's good. It's probably not, but I think it's very interesting and cool. That's a really good profile, to be honest. He's got 5 wounds. He's got a 2-up save. He's reasonable in melee, 5 attacks on the charge. He only hits on 3s, but he's strength 6, flat 2 damage, and he makes 1 attack with the servo arm. The servo arms don't have a penalty to hit anymore. It looks like the profile's the same, strength 8, -2, 3 damage. But you're not -1 to hit. Very nice. Servitors looks like have not changed. Yeah. Servitors are still sick. I was telling somebody recently about how they could downgrade a unit in their list to take servitors, and it would just make their list so much better because servitors are excellent at just sitting on an objective. Not a lot of indirect fire sort of reaches to the back anymore. It used to be, in 8th edition ITC, the issue was that you would lose servitors to 1 thunderfire cannon shot, and then you were out a kill more, and somebody's a unit to set on an objective. And now kill more generally doesn't matter unless your opponent takes grind them down, and they or attrition, and there's thunderfire cannons don't really exist anymore, especially after this codex. The standard tech marine. How many servo arms does this guy have? He has 1. This guy has 1, but I believe he can take 2. So he potentially punches a little bit harder. He's got like 2 thunderhammer attacks, which is pretty cool. Going into the intercessors, we have standard intercessors, assault intercessors, heavy intercessors. I don't think anything's changed here. The grenade launcher has gone to an assault weapon, which is weird to me, because you can do it in addition to throwing a regular grenade. It's like, okay, I guess it makes a little bit more sense, but I don't know. It's very strange. But I believe that means that you can fire your grenade launcher and your weapon, right? Yeah. So the grenade launcher was a points filler generally. If you came up to like 1999 points, you'd take one underslung grenade launcher in your list. But now, yeah, for every 5 models, one model can be equipped with a grenade launcher. Yeah, so you can fire the grenade launcher and shoot your gun now. That's a big deal, actually. So that's actually a really good weapon, to be honest. You just get an extra like strength 6 gunshot out of your army, out of your unit. Always take grenade launchers now. Holy crap. Sick. That's really good. Wow. Okay. Very good. And then I don't think any of these other profiles changed. Assault Intercessors, obviously Astartes Chainsword's got -1 AP. We knew that happening. Pretty good. And you can now take Power Fist, Power Sword, Thunderhammer. So you probably put Thunderhammers on your Assault Intercessor Sergeants. So stock up on those random Terminator Thunderhammers that eBay has for really cheap. And to put on all of your Intercessor unit leaders. The Heavy Intercessor Squad is here now. I talked about this in many videos previously. Their data sheet is utterly broken because the war gear options don't match the weapons in their profile. That'll get changed probably day 1. But they're harder to kill and have better weapons than a standard Intercessor Squad. They're obviously probably about 30% more expensive. That's probably worth it for at least one unit of heavy intercessors, but I'm excited to see how much these guys impact the army. I mean, a lot of the profiles, at least in the list I play, tend to kill intercessors very well, but not Gravis armored models, and the Gravis armored models seem really like a pain to pull off an objective. So just putting one in your army to sit on the backline objective in your deployment zone seems really good, especially since their guns shoot extra distance. You can't take a grenade launcher though, so that's sad. But you do get these sick heavy bolters. You get a 4-shot heavy bolter with AP 0, 2-shot heavy bolter with 3 damage at AP 2. Yeah, it's just solid stuff. Tactical Squad got a big points increase. Probably, I mean, a Tactical Squad is the same power level as an Intercessor Squad. Like, what the heck, man? Get these guys out of here. They suck now. And then we have Infiltrators and Incursors. Company Champions. This is... Okay, so it looks like we're just using battlefield roles up here. These aren't really organized into any particular... They're organized together, but they're not organized by the battlefield role. All the battlefield roles are organized together, but they're not in a section. So for a sec, I thought a company champion was troops, but it has the elite symbol there on its datasheet. So no problem. That took me a long time to explain the reasoning for something that didn't matter. An Infiltrator Squad is here. It has the smokescreen keyword, very nice. Not the shock grenade keyword. That looks like Reavers only. And unfortunately, it looks like no Reavers in troops. I would like to see Reavers in troops, but we don't get them. We just have regular infiltrators. They seem very reasonably costed, and they have I actually, going back. So for the previous video, I should mention I talked about some of the old school Astartes war gear options that used to be available, and one of them was the Apothecary Narthesium. Just lets you ignore your first failed armor save every turn, and this is a throwback to that mechanic, which I think is really cool. It treats your first damage characteristic against you for the first failed saving throw as 0. So that's actually really reasonable. I don't know what the cost of that model is. One infiltrator can be equipped with a Helix Gauntlet. Yeah, so he becomes the Helix Adept in that, or and you could take a Comms Array to get infinite range Rites of Battle. It still doesn't affect the Chapter Master Aura. This unit is not for fighting, though, so you probably don't want to take the Comms Array, but the Helix Gauntlet actually seems very playable now. It used to regenerate models, but the unit would always just immediately die, so it didn't really matter. But just making them eat one extra shot and making your opponent sequence their shots in a weird way makes a ton of sense. Like, a lot of times if it's a fresh squad, you want to put your 2 damage stuff first, but because of the Helix Adept there, you have to sequence your 1 damage stuff first, and it becomes less efficient. So there's actually a little bit of extra efficiency that doesn't really look like on the table. Because if your opponent shoots you the 2 damage shot and you just ignore the first 2 damage shot that goes through, they're going to be mad. The incursors, you can take a haywire mine, and it gives you D3 mortal wounds if you are charged, and 3 flat mortal wounds if you're a vehicle. Okay, so that's changed from the old mechanic where I used to be I have to place the mine and then somebody had to run onto it. This feels a lot more functional. I joked in the other one that nobody ever actually used the old haywire mines. People did, but mostly because it was cool rather than being good. And a lot of times you just run and trigger the mines anyway because like D3 mortal wounds isn't that big of a deal on most units, especially in 8th edition where you had just big like idiot units of guardsmen that would run everywhere. So yeah, these guys are less expensive than infiltrators, which is not surprising. They also have the smokescreen keyword, and yeah, I mean, we're probably going to see play. Looks like a roughly equivalent to an intercessor squad, but their damage output's not as good. Company champions here. We talked about him previously. We talked about the chapter command. I mean, they're probably fine as rockets, but I'm not going to really talk about them too much. You see them occasionally to open relic slots because they're cheap, but other than that, usually not playable. Scout squads went to elites. Here it is. There they are. There's the elites. The elite symbol right there. They have not changed, it looks like. Yeah, all right, cool. There's a bunch of stuff. Did the Astartes shotgun change at all? No, it did not. I actually think it got a nerf, right? Because it used to give you +1 strength when it was in half range. That's too bad. Poor Astartes shotgun. Okay. The apothecary's here, so yeah. So it has a 3-inch aura of -1. Or of the 6-up ignore, but it affects, I believe, Father of the Future only affected models within 6, and this is units within 3. So that's actually a little bit better. It's a little bit easier to get it on an entire unit if they're strung out, which is good, and it affects infantry and bikers, so you can put it on the ATVs. Interesting that it's not core, which is what I would expect. And then you can heal something for D3. Yeah, so these two profiles are basically exactly the same. This guy's got a chainsword though. That's cool. He doesn't have a reductor pistol, which is 2 flat damage. What is the difference between an absolver pistol and a reductor pistol? What? I guess the reductor is like his little syringe. He stabs you with the syringe, and you could shoot both of those if you are firing pistol weapons. Okay, so within 3 inches, he has an extra gun. Sure, you got it, buddy. The company ancients here. Yeah, here's all the ancients. Blade Guard Ancient is the only one I think I've seen who gets upgraded to the Chapter Ancient, mostly because he's harder to kill and has a pretty, I guess his attack profile is reasonable. No weapon, though. They have to hold that big banner around. You get +1 to hit, and is that what they all do? No. Oh, this is only Blade Guard. Okay, I get it. So this guy gives +1 to hit for Blade Guard. The other ones give you +1 leadership, and you make an attack when you die. All right, sick. So basically the same. All right, more ancients. We haven't talked about this command squad mechanic that a lot of these sort of sub characters have. You don't take up battlefield roll slots if you have taken. If you take Deathwing command squads, which must be a datasheet upgrade, right? Yeah, and I think that's the same here. So, I mean, previously, to explain the history a bit, previously there was an actual command squad unit, which was like 5 Space Marine veterans, and you would upgrade like one of them to the apothecary, one of them to the ancient, and one of them to whatever. And now, if you take that command squad, you get to take these guys for free in terms of your battlefield roll. You have to spend points still. Is that in the company veterans? No. Is there a command squad profile here, or is that going to be a specific thing? That's interesting. Did we maybe we skipped over it? But I mean, that was in that's the same in the apothecary. Yeah, for each company veterans. Okay, so it's specific. It's chapter specific. Excuse me. So if you take the company veterans unit, then you get one of each of these command squad units or models for free, without taking up a battlefield roll. which is, I think, a much cleaner way to implement that mechanic than making it a single unit, because the issue with that was like you would have a billion different abilities that you would all want to apply in different areas of the table, and it was one unit that was stuck together. So it never really worked. But now you just take a company veteran squad, and that's actually a reason to take company veterans now, because it's just a huge break on elite slots. If you already want an apothecary, which you probably do, and you might want an ancient or a champion, then it's a free roll on the elite slot, which is good. Unfortunately, the elite slot is sort of the most open one in Space Marines right now, because in a battalion, if you take a single battalion list, you have 6 elite slots to spend from. So you don't usually need that, but maybe if these characters start becoming popular, you might take some company veterans to play into that. Anyway, then there you go. You also get the company veteran squad for free if you have a captain. All right, so you probably have a captain in there. So you get the veterans for free, and then you get all of the other characters for free as soon as you take the veterans. So you get all of these without having to spend any elite slots. Okay, cool. It looks like some of them have specific command squad requirements, though. This is a Deathwing command squad. If you have a Deathwing command squad in your list, you can get it without taking a battlefield roll slot, but otherwise you have to. You have to expend the slot, and this guy just doesn't have command squad at all. All right, so this is a little bit more confusing than I expected. So they really want you to buy that old command squad box. Yeah, so for company veterans you do it. It doesn't work for Blade Guard Ancients. It doesn't work for Primaris Apothecaries, but it works for standard apothecaries. All right, well, that's a reason to take standard apothecaries, I guess. Now, unfortunately, you can't take the unit of 2 company veterans anymore, which is actually a pretty reasonable elite slot, because they were like 2 ablative wounds for one of your random characters. But oh no, you can. Yeah, it's a sergeant and 1 model, and then you can take 3 additional models. Okay, no, never mind, you're fine. You can take combat shields if you're Dark Angels. Yeah, you can take storm shields. You can take pistols. Yeah. The ever-present benefit of taking company veterans is that they have the widest selection of war gear options. So you can basically take whatever you want on these guys. And I think it used to be like Stormbolt or Storm Shield was pretty good for them, just to shoot some dudes down, and then they could eat wounds for characters, which is nice. Do they still have that ability? Yes. A friendly chapter character with the wounds characters up to 9 or less within 3 inches. Oh, so you can't eat wounds for big characters anymore. Although Space Marines don't have any of those, right? So it doesn't really matter. I guess Cronus is the only one. Within 3 inches, and models cannot target a character with range attacks. Okay, so it's actually a little bit different. It's just like a super lookout, sir, if you're within 3 of them. So even though they're 2 models, you can put them behind the character. So if you have the character in front, you can have these guys behind them. If the firing model's here, as long as those guys are within 3, you cannot target them. And then potentially you could block line of sight to these guys from the character, and the character is completely untargetable. So that's situationally a useful ability. You can't take jump packs on these guys, right? Yeah, that would be nice. But if you want to unlock that command squad, those command squad slots, it's probably worth it. We have Stern Guard and Vanguard veterans, which are pretty good. Yeah, there they are. Solid. Vanguard veterans, or Stern Guard veterans get their special issue bolt gun. Looks like their stratagem to get +1 to wound is gone. So unfortunately, I think Stern Guard veterans also gone. They were pretty situationally powerful when you could get +2 to wound or +3 to wound in the case of salamanders onto that one unit, and then they would shoot their bolt guns and blow up a tank, which is really cool. ADP 3 in the tactical doctrine. But that was the only use for the entire unit, and it looks like that ability has been removed unless I glossed over it. So you probably will not be taking Stern Guard veterans anytime soon. Vanguard veterans probably still playable. Now that they're 2 wounds, they can all take storm shields. That's pretty reasonable. And you can automatically pass your +2 to charge aura on your chaplain or on your Master of Sanctity, and then you can give them +1 to wound with the Master of Sanctity. And you can really hammer somebody with these guys. So coming in with 4 attacks each with the Astartes Chain Swords, AP 2 or 3, Strength 4 +1 to wound, and then you have a Thunderhammer in there. They also have their Thunderhammer profile looks like a little bit better too. I think the standard Thunderhammer went to AP 2, but theirs is AP 3 4 damage because it's a big one. That's much better. That looks like that's probably also going to be the change for the Deathwatch Thunderhammer, which was D6 damage, which sucked. Nobody enjoyed rolling that thing out. But flat 4 damage, that's crazy. It's a bit, big Mastercrafted Thunderhammer profile. So you get 4 attacks off that guy with the Thunderhammer, plus 1 to wound, probably winning a vehicle on 2s, and then the rest of the unit is probably chainswords. Can you take relic blades on them? You can just take them from the melee weapons list. Unfortunately, the scan is not amazing, so it's a little bit difficult to read. Only the veteran sergeant can take a relic blade, which is too bad. You probably want that guy to have the Thunderhammer in the unit. So anyway, with either way, plus 1 to wound with a base AP of 1, going to AP 2 with 4 attacks each is really solid. So I think the combo of a Vanguard Veteran Squad and a Jump Pack Chaplain, potentially a Master of Sanctity, is probably going to be very common, because I think those guys will be. It's probably 200 or 300 points if you take the full gamut, but man, do they hit hard. Unfortunately, you can't double fight with them anymore, so obviously that sucks. But just being able to hit somebody really hard and then roll up with the Primera stuff afterwards is pretty good. Judiciary, we talked about a little bit in the previous video, has changed so that the Temporal Mortis is only a 3-inch range, but makes you ineligible to fight, so you cannot swing. Otherwise, it looks like his profile is the same. Reaver Squads, here they are. Everyone's favorite garbage unit. And yeah, there they are. Poor Reavers. They have the coolest guns and stuff, but they have a bolt carbine, shoots 2 times. It's basically the same. You have bolter discipline, so most of the time your guns are going to be 2 shot strength 4 guns. So like having this bolt carbine profile is not particularly exciting for anyone. And yeah, it's the grapnel launcher gives you outflank, which is cool, and you can ignore vertical distance when you move. The graph shoot can give you death from above, also cool. I wish they were troops, man. I think they'd see play if they were objective secured, but you have to jump through so many hoops to give them objective secured. You'd rather give it to Blade Guard veterans. So too bad Reaver is probably not going to see a lot of play here. Aggressor squads, this is a big one that got totally hammered. Okay, it looks like the auto Boltstorm Gauntlet is standard, and the Boltstorm Gauntlet that the captain has is a 3-shot pistol, a range 12 pistol. So the auto Boltstorm Gauntlet, they each have 2, and it punches like a Power Fist for 2 flat damage now. The big difference is that they lost all of their abilities. They lost their Advance and Shoot, which is flabbergasting. That was like, honestly, the double tap was like whatever, because you had to spend so much time setting it up that when you did, I mean, it was probably like, good on you, dude. You set up the double tap on a range 18 gun. But the Advance and Shoot let them actually get in and do stuff, and they do not have Advance and Shoot, and they do not have double tap. They just are regular guys. Okay, well, that's too bad. The Flamestorm Gauntlet obviously doesn't care about advancing and shooting, so that's probably still playable, especially since Flamers went up to 12 inches, but I don't know if you want these auto bolt Storm Gauntlet guys anymore. Their combat profile is still good. It didn't change, but it's, 3 attacks, 4 on the charge with punchy fists is pretty solid. But, I mean, that's really all they got going for them. You may see the Flamestorm guys and Salamanders now, but other than that, I don't believe that. I think Aggressors have fallen pretty far from grace. Going to be replaced with those sick, heavy Intercessors that, shoot half as good, but do it at twice the range. So, there you go. Terminators went to 3 wounds. Woo! That's actually sick. I couldn't tell you what the optimal Terminator builds right now are, but oh man, am I excited that they may be back in playability. They look expensive. 9 power level, they're probably coming in at 40 points a model, which is really pricey. I guess it's basically the same as Aggressors, but you can do some good builds. You can get the the shooty build out of the standard Terminators, Cyclone Missile Launchers, and Stormbolters. They don't have any other cool. They used to, back in the day, they ignored the -1 to hit penalty for moving and shooting heavies, and they don't anymore, which is sad. But, you can teleport him, shoot an assault cannon 6 times with -1. That's pretty good. And, just light some people up, and then shoot a Cyclone Missile Launcher. Yeah, I don't know. Seems fine. Or you take the Assault Terminators. Big deal, obviously, is this Teleport Homer. You can it used to be you would place the marker in your deployment zone. It worked like a Deathwatch teleport homer, but now you just remove it from the battlefield and then you reinforce it in next turn. It's at the start of your movement phase, though. That might be okay. It's a little bit less exciting because you can't act for an entire turn. And you set it up within your deployment zone more than 9 inches away from enemies, or within 3 inches of any friendly chapter model and more than 9 inches away from enemies. Okay. Well, that's interesting. A little bit sad that you can't dump it the same turn or anywhere on the table. Like, you can't just put them back into teleport. If it's split into two squads, you can only use one with teleport homer. That's that's less flexible than it was in 8th edition. It's probably still good, especially. Wow, is it? It's only a 5-round game. You lose an entire round of efficacy out of a 200 or 400 point unit. I don't know, man. And it's at the start of your movement phase. Yeah. I want Terminators to be good so bad, everybody, but man, I'm not really seeing it. I'm sure there's a combo in there at somewhere. Might be that if you can take a like Wolfguard Terminator squad and they can still take their Combi Plaz spam, like that's good to teleport around the table. But man, I wish it was you could just teleport regularly. That's like a Deathwatch teleport homer. That's too bad. Teleporting the Terminator Assault Squad might actually be interesting because a lot of times like they would teleport in and kill something and then they have to walk to the next place. So instead of walking, you just pick them up and then you put them down next turn. So I'm probably a little bit more interested in the Terminator Assault Squad, although their Storm Shields that get nerfed pretty like hilariously. They're just worse in most situations. Specifically, AP1 is where you're better off, but that's it. Every other AP value, you're the same or worse. So yeah, who knows? I hope the Space Marine community can find some place for Terminators in the list because everyone loves them. So get them in there. The Relic Terminator Squad has taken over for the old Cataphractii and Tartarus Terminator squads. So it looks like do they just have the same profile now? They're all the same? Yeah, they're a 5-inch move. The Cataphractii used to be a 4-inch move and with like half their advance rolls. But had a 4+ invulnerable. Yeah, it looks like they just all have a regular Terminator suit now, that's fine. You don't need to that was like I think one of the best examples of kind of datasheet spam that the Codex had was like having 4 separate Terminator profiles, like 2 of which basically didn't matter because they were Horus Heresy models. I do like that these profiles are here though. They have plasma blasters. I saw 2 plasma weapons. Maybe that's fair. That's pretty good. The plasma guns looks like still kill you if you roll ones. I didn't talk about that, but that sucks. Interesting. So this little unit actually looks fairly playable, to be honest. I think they have some interesting guns. Who can take them? You can take 1 grenade harness, 1 lightning claw. Any relic Terminator. Oh, the Sergeant can take a plasma blaster. Anyone can have chain fist or lightning claws. 1 model can have a heavy flamer or a Reaper autocannon. Yeah. So this plasma gun profile is actually really cool. -3 2 damage, but you die if you overcharge it. Unfortunately, you can only take 1 of those. So maybe not so good. Although it is a way. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. I don't know. They're fine. They're just more Terminator profiles. Probably stop talking about those guys now. Centurions got dumpstered. It looks like, at least with the core mechanics of the faction. This is the Assault Squad. They can take assault launchers or replace them with hurricane bolters. And it's any number of models. So if you want to keep that assault launcher keyword, you could take 1 in the unit, and then keep and then replace with the hurricane bolter. I don't know. Does the strat require you to pick within 9 inches of a model or a unit with that? For shock and awe, this is the shock grenades, assault launchers. Yeah, it's a unit from your army. So you can take 1 assault launcher in the unit out of the hurricane bolters, and then you can shock and awe off the hurricane bolters, which is really silly. Where are we at with Centurions here? Here we are. Oh no, that's aggressors. They just look the same. So that's interesting. Oh, it also just says right here the unit has the assault launchers keyword. But honestly, they're going to be expensive and they're not going to do much damage. So at least the flamers are 12-inch range now. It's exciting. They also went up a speed. They're moved 5 instead of 4 now. Okay, all right. See, a little bit. So this is a little bit going on. You can probably keep them for fairly cheap. We have to look at their points cost. 9 power though, they're probably 50 or 60 points a model. I bet they got a big up. But with the 12-inch range flamer, I mean, maybe they're competing with the assault. The Centurions are competing with aggressors more directly now. It used to be that the assault Centurions just had way more damage output, but the aggressors are cheaper. Now it looks like they're probably going to be a similar points cost, and the aggressors are going to be a little bit more efficient, but easier to kill, which is really how it should be. It was weird that they kind of had direct competition. I guess it probably the tiebreaker is probably that Primaris keyword. These guys are firstborn, obviously, and so they don't get access to transhuman physiology. And being Gravis, they also get access to that new Gravis stratagem. So you probably take aggressors now if you want a flamer unit like that in your army, since their damage output is relatively the same in melee. They're both 3 attacks, 4 on the charge. With I guess these guys are flat 3 damage rather than an AP4 instead of flat 2 AP3, but the aggressors are probably a little bit cheaper, so you get a couple extra attacks out of them. Yeah, probably if you're looking for that kind of unit with the flamethrowers, then you take aggressors, I think. The Invictor's in here. Any changes to the Invictors? Is Invictor core? It's not, right? It's so weird to me. It's bizarre. It looked like the rationale of the core units was that it was a model that could listen to other models that were talking, basically, and that's why Dreadnoughts had core, but vehicles didn't. Except the Invictor literally has a guy sitting in it, and you can see him. He's right here. It's just a Dreadnought, except the guy's still alive instead of being dead, who's inside it, and it doesn't get the core keyword. That's so bizarre. It looks like their heavy bolter is the same. They lost their pistol rule, so they can't shoot as a pistol. They get -1 to hit with it. That's fine. This is, I think, another an example of how like the hilariously wrong stats on the assembly guides that some people were showing around a couple of weeks ago. I think that had that heavy bolter at 1 shot. There was like a bunch of weird and incorrect stuff on those. Yeah, that has been disproven now. But we do have an autocannon, iron hail autocannon, yeah, 6 shots. The heavy stubbers went to +1, it looks like. So the twin iron hail stubbers go to 8 shots. So they do shoot more times. And the frag storm grenade is the same. It is blast. Yeah, I don't know. They seem okay. Unfortunately, not being able to benefit from rerolls probably dumpsters that unit. Because previously, I mean, you take them on Ultramarines and then you would deploy them back next to your auras, and then you would you would buff them up. I guess that new Primaris Tech Marine guy can give them +1 to hit. That's pretty good. And here we are in Dreadnoughts. Yeah, it looks like all the Dreadnoughts have the smokescreen keyword like we were talking about before. Not the Contemptors, though. Venerables and standard Dreadnoughts do. I was actually talking to somebody recently about how powerful these standard Dreadnoughts are in Combat Patrol. Talking about Combat Patrol again, but standard Dreadnoughts, Venerable Dreadnoughts, these profiles you didn't really see in 2,000-point games because you would always upgrade to like a Contemptor style, and you would just never take these guys. But when you're points crunched, having this style of unit in at that points level is a lot more powerful, and being able to get the budget version is usually pretty good. Obviously the big change here is that all of the Dreadnoughts have Duty Eternal baked in constantly. They're all -1 to be damaged, so they're just going to be disgusting to kill. Their low wounds count is not really going to matter so much. I hope that this means that we see the the character Dreadnoughts maybe curbed a little bit, because they don't need to be sub 10 wounds to be untargetable as much anymore. So maybe Iron Hands loses the March of the Ancients. I'm crossing my fingers for that. Please, sir, take away March of the Ancients. Especially since the Contemptors are 9 wounds now, so they can be blocked they can be character protected. Oh god, that's disgusting. What is this weird templating on this on these stats? The toughness and strength are like bizarrely far away from the wounds. Maybe that's just the page being curved. So Looks like Space Wolf's got the Wolf Claw baked in. You reroll wound rolls with those. Pretty good if you're Space Wolf or Space Wolf Successor. That's interesting. Yeah, I guess the thing that we haven't talked about is being able to take successors of non-compliant chapters, which has never been possible before, but it might open up some new combos now. Go through the Venerable Dreadnoughts. Yeah, you can take a Blizzard Sea Shield if you're in Space Wolves, right? Yeah. Space Wolves have the coolest Dreadnoughts. Redemptor Dreadnoughts is where people are talking about things, the way forward being. These Dreadnoughts are speed 8, right? Yeah, move. Oh, another move 6, yeah. The Ironclad Dreadnought also moves 6. And toughness 8. That's pretty good. Toughness 8 minus 1 damage, even on an 8 wound. Chassis is pretty hard to kill. They usually come in at around 140, 150 points for the Ironclad. We'll see if the points got. We'll have to see if the points got bumped up. Yeah, their Chain Fist went to 2d3. But it's a 6 damage against vehicles. That's pretty good. I think that used to be a flat 4 on the Chain Fist. And then the Seismic Hammer is minus 1, but goes to flat 5. You think you'd usually take the Chain Fist, and then you replace the Seismic Hammer. I don't know, with something. But this is another model we were talking about using in Combat Patrol because it seems like kind of obnoxious to kill at toughness 8, minus 1 damage. Redemptor Dreadnoughts, also Duty Eternal. Explode for D3 instead of D6 now, everyone. Your Primaris armies don't rip themselves apart with exploding Dreadnoughts. You also, previously, at least for some of the stuff, you had the power of the Machine Spirit could force at least repulsors to auto-explode for those D6s, and they lost that now, so there's a little bit of functionality with that D6 explosion gone. But that obviously didn't affect Redemptors, so probably best to talk about that when we talk about the other vehicles. But Redemptors, these are all core units, yeah, so they all are affected by your auras. And it looks like the Plasma Incinerator got extra damage, so that might be playable. The big issue was that the weapons on this thing were really sad. You could take the Onslaught plus the standard Gatling cannons to fire 18 strength 5 shots. Looks like the Onslaught went to strength 6. It's actually kind of annoying because you can't fast roll it anymore together, but obviously the plus 1 strength is much better. And then you have a bunch of Stormbolt. Yeah, just a billion anti-infantry shots. That's less usable. That's less useful now. That was in 8th edition too, so it was usually minus 1 to hit because it was like waddling around the table. Now it doesn't affect that. You can shoot them in melee. That's pretty good. The Plasma Incinerator went to flat 2 or flat 3 damage. So you might take that instead. But D6 shot weapon though is just like so sad. You can just sometimes just blank out on that shot. But you can. You can't, I should mention, a lot. It looks like the Plasma went to unmodified hit rolls to wound yourself. So you can't combo those with like the plus 1 to hit aura off of the Tech Marine, the Primaris Tech Marine, to ignore the Plasma roll. You will have to just eat those mortal wounds. You are Duty Eternal with a 13 wounds, which is really good. You can potentially give that guy an invulnerable save with Psychic Fortress. I don't know. There's some combos here. But I'm not sure that the damage output is really there. Like, this guy doesn't have a twin las cannon on him. He's just got this weird plasma gun, which is a little bit sad. But maybe it'll be playable. I'm excited. I think Redemptor Dreadnoughts are cool. They're certainly one of the coolest Dreadnought designs that we've seen so far, and so I hope that they are much better than they were in 8th Ed. Assault squads, I sort of can't imagine that assault squads are particularly good. They do have the Melt-A-Bomb keyword. Something we didn't keep an eye out for was Melt-A-Bombs elsewhere. See if anybody else has Melt-A-Bombs. Yeah, Vanguard veterans do, which is probably, if you're taking an assault unit like that, you're probably taking Vanguard veterans. Stern Guard veterans do not. I think tacticals do is what I... company veterans do not, interestingly. Let's go look at tacticals. Tacticals do have Melt-A-Bombs. Okay. So all of these assault marines, you can trigger that Melt-A-Bomb keyword off. I don't know if it's worth taking standard assault squads with a single attack. It's such a throwaway unit. These used to, way back in my day, you could take them as troops and Blood Angels, and they were pretty reasonable then. But oh boy, am I not excited to put one attack assault marines on the table? If you really need those fast attack slots filled, then there you go. But They probably bumped a bunch of wounds for a bunch of points for their +1 wound as well, so it's not less exciting. The Outriders are here. I do like that all of the chapter sub-factions have been baked into your profiles. Obviously, we can see that all through this thing with Ravenwing and Deathwing and Wolfguard as well. Those are all going to be baked right into your data sheet. And the Outrider does Outrider stuff. The ATV is the new unit that everyone's freaking out about. 8 wounds that you can be fully revived with an Apothecary. Pretty strong. It's missing the core keyword, whereas looks like Outriders and the other bikers mostly have it. So it's going to lose a little bit of efficiency there, but you can probably build around that. It can't be affected by litanies. It can't be affected by auras. But you can, I mean, maybe if you're taking the multi-melta version, maybe that's an argument for, I mean, Salamanders can reroll the wound roll and get +1 to wound. And the Master Artisans now can get the one reroll to hit, which is okay. They also ignore the heavy penalty because they're bikers. They have 4 base attacks. They randomly explode. Yeah, I mean, this unit's going to be disgusting, I think. And especially in Combat Patrol as well, they come in just under, we have a 250 point, or 249 point limit. They come in just under that as well. Get 24 wound unit in that format is going to be gross. The Standard Bike Squad has returned. Does bike things, I guess. Not really much to talk about here. Scout bikes, I think, are fine. You can replace your pistol. Yeah, I mean, these are the same for the most part, it looks like. Do they get combat knives, though? Yeah, everyone has a combat knife. I think that's changed. I don't believe that everyone had a combat knife in 8th edition. So that they're basically +1 to wound, or +1 attack now. I'm going to verify that, actually. Oh, no, they did have a combat knife. Just kidding. So they were, yeah. These guys are kind of gross occasionally in 8th edition, especially like with White Scars, where you could make them advance. They advance and shot their shotguns for free. You could make them advance and shoot their bolt guns. Then you could, like, go in and cut off the head for a super consolidate and just, like, wrap stuff. And make them really hard to kill with strats and things like that. It was a fun unit. I don't know if it was a very good unit, but you take a unit of 9, they would shoot a billion times, like just a million times. Like each model shoots 6 because of their twin bolt gun plus their shotgun. And then the sergeant also had a stormbolter, so he had 2 twin bolt guns and a shotgun. So he would shoot 10 times, and a unit of 9 would shoot. What is that? 6 times 9, 54 plus 4, 58 shots. So you just ream a horde unit, and then if they were alive, you would charge them and attack them with 3 attacks each. That unit was kind of gross in 8th Ed, but I don't think the paradigm of unit is is super powerful in 9th Ed, so I don't know if it's going to be that useful. Although they can just do the same thing, they can still do it. They are core, right? Yeah, so you can affect them with like +1 to wound and stuff and just put out a billion shots. Although you could just spend CCP and double tap a Primaris Intercessor unit, so it doesn't really matter. So moving on, we have Suppressors. They got an extra shot on their autocannons, which is pretty good. They traded for an AP, though, it looks like, so they're not going to hit quite as hard, but 9 shots out of that unit is still pretty reasonable, especially if they stay at around that 90 to 100 points that they are currently. I think I've seen some suppressors are sort of slowly cropping back in, and actually an extra shot apiece seems pretty reasonable for them, especially they still retain their suppressing fire, and it actually got a little bit of a buff. It only affects infantry now, but you just straight up can't overwatch if they hit you. It used to be that you had to remove a casualty with that gun to stop somebody from overwatching. So that's actually a little bit of a bump. I think Suppressor is probably looking pretty okay, to be honest. I've talked about the Storm Speeders in the past, and I don't know if I really need to go into them very much more. They're very expensive for pretty easy to kill chassis, so unfortunately I don't know if we see the Storm Speeders, despite the fact that the model, I mean, it's okay. I don't like the three Primaris Intercessors, like driving this thing around. That seems like overkill, but there you go. It's it's sort of medium damage output and low resilience for very expensive. We do have a big melted destroyer, 3 melting guns, exciting. Land speeders, I think, are probably going to see a resurgence here. A lot of people have been talking about using them with Raven Wing because of a lot of the Raven Wing abilities and the Dark Angels abilities for this fast stuff has been upgraded pretty significantly, and so we may see land speeders come in. Obviously, we're already seeing Tempests kind of taking things over right now. Hopefully that gets mitigated a little bit. Tempests are annoying to play against. I think everyone would much rather play against standard land speeders. And then we have the other ones. So tornadoes get their heavy weapons, and typhoons get their missile launchers as well. Pretty straightforward stuff. Typhoon missile launcher, yeah, just coming in as a standard missile launcher, frag or crack rounds and loaded in that guy. Hellblasters, I think, got a little bit of a bump. Their heavy gun got +1 damage in all its profiles. I don't know if we'll see play for these guys, although we have been seeing Devastator-style units become more powerful as the edition goes on. People just typically don't have enough attacks to deal with them early. Previously, I mean, you would just take them and your opponent would look at them and they would explode. But now you have to kill OBSEC stuff on objectives immediately, otherwise you get a big lead on primary. So small units like this that can stay relatively safe and blink out a couple shots, contribute a little bit to the game, usually are not too bad. So we may see Hellblasters come back in. Centurion Devastators, 14 power level for these guys. Oh boy. I don't know Centurion Devastator seems a little bit superfluous to me, to be honest, but who knows if we will. It looks like we lost access to the the gravitic amplification, unless I missed that somewhere. So we will probably no longer see the Grav Devastator bombs with the full rerolls anymore for 1 CP, even though you could stand up still for 2 CP, which is pretty good. Unfortunately, that's too bad. So those grav cannon combos may be removed pretty quickly, but we could see Centurion Devastators like las cannons or something come out. I wouldn't put my money on it though. I think they're too expensive. Yeah, you're probably with just the grav cannon, you're probably coming out at 60 points a model. For 14 power? No, like 80 points a model. Too many points. That's too many points. Especially when you can take Eradicators. Eradicators already the hotness, and probably even more so. Looks like they haven't really changed in points cost. We'll take a look at their points cost at the end here. But, boy, did this unit get a big bump. They can't advance and totally obliterate, which is fine. That was kind of dumb to begin with. But they get access to either heavy melta rifles or multi-meltas in the unit. And that just increases their damage output significantly. Eradicators are dumb. I think a lot of Marine lists are going to be built around like a backbone of like 3 Eradicator squads. Yikes. Eliminators. I talked a lot about the Instigator Bolt Carbine. Is that right? Yeah, with this covering fire roll in your shooting phase, if you shoot, then you can just move afterwards. That's really cool. That's super cool. I can't imagine that it'll be particularly playable, but I think it's a sick ability. I think it's very flavorful and very interesting. Devastators going to 2 wounds is actually pretty reasonable, or pretty good for them, because it's going to make them a lot harder to sort of trivially remove, especially if they have a combo like a Grav Bomb. Maybe Space Wolves will retain their ability to bomb out like plasma Longfang squads, and maybe Dark Angels have something similar with Weapons of the Dark Age, but without gravitic amplification, I can't really imagine Devastator squads seeing much play here. Does the Armorium Cherub have a rule? Yeah, 1 model can shoot immediately with its ranged weapons. Cool. So the rule about the Armorium Cherub, it's just a reminder. It doesn't count as a model for any rules purposes. Very nice. The Thunderfire Cannon got dumpstered down to Strength 4, 1 damage. Super good. It has all of these abilities. Okay. One thing that I feel like it's worth mentioning that kind of always annoys me is that because the Thunderfire Cannon unit it has this crude artillery rule, so it splits into a Tech Marine and a Thunderfire, and both of them have all of the abilities on the datasheet because it doesn't say that they don't. So basically both the artillery piece and the tech marine have this crude artillery rule, and that means that the tech marine can perform actions while within 3 inches of the artillery unit, because both of them say that if the gunner is within 3, then they can shoot, or that it's destroyed and they can shoot. So it also looks like it gets the sort of standard crude artillery thing. So the Tech Marine Gunner itself is not... Oh, he is a character. Okay, so he just gets super character protection while he's next to the Thunderfire. That's a little bit of an increase. But that means that the Tech Marine Gunner can perform actions, and the gun doesn't go away, because the gunner is a character, so when he's performing actions, his aura abilities disappear, which meant previously that the crude artillery ability on his datasheet would stop working, but because it's also on the guns itself's datasheet, it still applies, which is kind of annoying. I kind of wish that guy couldn't perform actions, but here we are. We have the Fire Strike servo turrets. These are non-core. These are both non-core, I should say. It looks like the Tech Marine style units are not getting the core keyword. That makes this a little bit awkward to take. I honestly doesn't look very good to me. It's a lot of power level for something that basically doesn't move. It's a move 3. So, I mean, it'll shuffle around the table slowly. I like somebody pointed out that if it rolls a 6 on an advance roll, it triples its movement, which is... which is funny to think about, this guy like picking up this whole turret and just schlepping across the table with it. But it either has a Las Talon, which is pretty good if short ranged, and this accelerator autocannon. I kind of wish it had a forward deploy ability. That would feel really kind of appropriate to me. But just in general, this whole, like, the design of the model doesn't look very good. Conceptually, it doesn't seem to work with sort of the Space Marine style. Space Marines have always been kind of, I guess, keyed as sort of a hit and run shock troop kind of thing, and having this like dedicated gun emplacement doesn't really make any sense to me. But I don't know, maybe it's good, maybe people will take it. I think you'd probably just want to take a Dreadnought. This is only 5 wounds, toughness 5. It does have a 2-up save, which is nice. It's a vehicle, so it can't get cover most of the time, and it's just going to give up 2 points on Bring It Down. So I don't know if you really want to take these things. Moving down to the Hunter Stalker. I mentioned in the other video that these might be sick because their gun got a really big level up. They no longer get -1 to hit if they don't target flyers. And it looks like they get +2 to hit aircraft now. So they'll ignore hard to hit and get +1 on top of that. So they hit on a 2. And they hit for D6 +6. Holy crap! That's enormous. You could just one-shot most aircraft in the game with that if you roll that casual 6 on your damage roll. That's so crazy. Oh man, yeah. You just like hit with this thing and then you flak missile it with a random missile launcher in your scout squad or whatever, and you just like burn down an aircraft. That's a lot of damage. It's also just a D6 gun when you shoot regular stuff. When you turn it down to shoot. Shoots. It's just a las cannon. It's just a las cannon profile that has a 60-inch range. And it's on a toughness 8 vehicle. It is 11 wounds, which is kind of annoying, but it's on a toughness 8 vehicle with who's probably pretty reasonably costed. We saw Stalkers pop up a little bit at the start of 9th edition, and in 8th edition, very famously, I think LGT, we had a triple hunter list get played with Master Artisans to make that gun really reliable. And that was in the old rules where they got -1 to hit everything. Looks like the Stalker doubles its shots against aircraft and gets +1 to hit. So it is only going to hit hard to hit stuff on a 3, but it's shooting 12 autocannon shots out of that thing. At a 6 power level, it's probably 110 to 120 points, which is like really reasonable for 6 autocannon shots or 12 autocannon shots. Maybe. We'll have to look. Yeah, we'll take a look at this one. I'll make a note to look at this one when we look at points as well, because that's sort of, I mean, it's a poor man's Invictor tactical warsuit, right? But it is toughness 8, so it's much harder to kill. Obviously, it doesn't have the melee profile or the forward deploy or the anti-infantry guns, but if it's a lot cheaper, I don't know. Maybe you play that thing. I'm sort of, yeah, I think the Hunter and Stalker are cool, like sort of ideas. A toughness 8, just like artillery vehicles, is pretty cool. But we'll see. We'll have to see if they're any good. Whirlwind is here. basically looks like basically the same. It's got the indirect fire, the 2d3 strength 7s, or the 2d6 strength 6. Is that a bit of an upgrade? Was it always strength 6 or was it strength 5 in 8th edition? Yeah, it basically hasn't changed actually. Okay, so there you go. Cool. Good job, Whirlwind. Predator Destructor, Predator Annihilator got separate data sheets for some reason, even though it looks like they're exactly the same. They just have a different turret gun. So you could just say that you could replace the turret gun, but I guess not. These don't seem very playable, to be perfectly honest. The Predator autocannon is a flat 3 damage 2d, so it's just the same as the Helverin autocannon, which is honestly a pretty good profile, but the Helverin's better because it shoots 2 of them and is also hits you in melee and is move 14. And as an invulnerable save. I don't think we need to talk about Predators very much. They don't seem very good. Also, all the vehicles lost core, obviously, so that doesn't really matter. Pretty sad times for the Gladiators to come out around this time. Although it is a little frustrating to me. This feels like the Gladiator release here feels like they're just trying to supersede Repulsor Executioners, which is a little annoying because A, I think Repulsor Executioners are sick, but B, like when the last edition, the last Codex came out, it was a little over a year ago that Executioners came out, I think, and everybody bought them. They were really good. Then in this edition, they nerfed them into the dirt, and they come out with the Gladiator to basically just supersede the Executioner and be a slightly better version. Unfortunately, comes out at a bad time because it's basically it seems like a fringe playable unit type at best for these big tanks. So that's too bad. But it's basically, it's an Executioner. It loses 4 wounds for, that's it, basically. It just loses 4 wounds. It gets +1 to hit with its turret weapon now, is what Aquilon Optics does. It doesn't double your shots. And that's why Executioners, I think, we'll have to look at their datasheet. I haven't actually seen the Executioner datasheet, but that would be a reason that Executioners would be much, much worse if it cannot double tap its laser cannon. Because that's why you brought an Executioner. It had a bunch of guns on it. That was pretty good. But the big thing was that it would one-shot other vehicles with its laser gun. And you can't do that anymore. It just hits on 2s, and it's probably the same weapon profile, but we'll have to take a look. So strength 10 -3, D3 +3 damage is a pretty good profile, but only 2 shots for probably 200-ish points on this in this power level, and not any other guns. It has some grenade launchers on it. It has 2 storm bolters. It replaces them with grenade launchers. Okay. All right. We have the Gladiator Reaper and the Vindicator. How much is this? This is 11, so that's probably 220 if we have a 20-point power level 2 points conversion rate. The Reaper comes in with twin Gatling cannons and Tempest bolters. So it shoots 24 strength 6 -1s, and the Tempest bolters come out with, they're each rapid fire 4, and there's 2 of them. So potentially you could shoot another 16, so you could shoot 40 times. This would be, now I think this would be a playable unit if we were back in 8th edition, and you could stack a bunch of wound buffs on this guy. And you could, in Tactical Doctrine, you're shooting at a toughness 7 vehicle. Everything's 5s to wound, and you get +1 from Catechism of Fire, +1 from Crucible of Battle, or something like that. And you hit for, you probably 100% convert with a Chapter Master next to you, and you hit for 40. You probably put 20 or 25 -1 saves through, and you just blow up another tank. Like, that's really good, but you cannot do that anymore. You could Crucible of Battle it probably if that strat still exists, but ugh. I don't know. You can give all these, I guess it's worth mentioning, you can give these smokescreen. They don't automatically have them, but you have to upgrade them to it. You probably do, for the most part, especially if you're just running one, so that you can just bank that 1 CP to make it -1 to hit every turn. That's actually really powerful. But again, you can just do it to a Dreadnought who gets rerolls and is -1 to be damaged and has all these other buffs. I don't know. It looks like the turret weapons are the real draw for these, but if you can't buff the turret weapons, like, what's the point? I don't know. Vindicator gets +1 save against some ranged attacks if you take the shield. That's cool. Sure, why not? Seems okay. Again, probably not very good though. And then Land Raider, probably the same for the Land Raider. Unfortunately, they spent so much time trying to make Land Raiders good, and and they did not do very well. Gladiator Valiant gets a 4-shot las cannon. We're sort of getting into the range where it's probably pretty reasonable. I think the four las cannon shots probably better than the 2 laser destructor shots that the other variant has. It also has 2 multi-meltas. Holy crap! So 24 inches, this thing just blows vehicles up. Yeah, that's probably pretty solid, I think. I'm honestly just gonna skip the Land Raiders. You can't put Primaris in them. These are almost just throw like legend data sheets right now. You spend 300 points on a tank that you can't buff with anything, and okay. Sorry, Land Raiders. We tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it didn't even matter. So we're over here to Repulsors. We'll talk about the Repulsor Executioner first because I just touched on it when we were talking about Gladiators. So the Heavy Laser Destroyers was sort of the headliner when they came out. You could double tap with Aquilon Optics, and it would shoot D3 flat 3 or D6 flat 3, which is better than D3 plus 3, or which is worse than D3 plus 3. So their damage value increased a little bit. They basically will be they'll be between 4 and 6 damage rather than between 3 and 6 damage. So their baseline is 1 extra damage higher, which is good, but not too much to write home about. And unfortunately, only 2 shots instead of 4 is this model was around 330 points in 8th edition, and looks like is even more. That's probably 380 now. Yeah, I can't really imagine ever taking one of these with this profile. It has a billion guns, and that's very nice, but unfortunately that big headline weapon is worse, and it's been increased in points. Repulsor looks like the Repulsor doesn't have the same problem, right? It never had that Aquilon Optics ability. And being able to transport 10 Primaris models is pretty reasonable, actually, because you can put a bunch of Gravis guys in it. So you could put 5 Eradicators in this thing and run it up the table. Unfortunately, that's immensely expensive. So I don't know if you're going to do that. You probably just deep strike those guys with one of the many ways you have to deep strike things in Space Marines. So it's too bad for all of these Repulsor vehicles. It's sort of flabbergasting to me that just any vehicle thing just lost core. Especially for this one, it's an ATV, it's an IFV, it's a infantry transport. You want to have it run with its captain or whatever, but no. You just take Dreadnoughts for mostly the same stuff. All of the vehicles are here. I'll skip over Rhinos. I don't know if we really need to talk about Rhinos. Looks like they're basically unchanged. They no longer have their ability to heal themselves for 1, which is good because everyone forgot about that as a roll. Was it on a 6 they healed a 1 wound every turn? Okay. That looks like that has been removed. So we're just going to be talking about Impulsors, I think. Anything here on Razorbacks? Probably not. Yeah. Impulsors are a big, important vehicle in the Space Marine arsenal right now because you can run Blade Guard veterans up the table with them. Shield Dome got reduced from a 4+ invulnerable save to a 5+ invulnerable save. Gotta pump those 4+ invulnerable saves in 8th edition when they came out to sell a billion of them and then nerf them so that they don't break the meta forever. And so you can sell the Gladiators now, I guess. It looks like they're 7 power level says to me we're probably looking at 130 points, which I think is what they are right now. They're probably still playable. -1 invulnerable save is annoying, I think, but that's probably good from a balance standpoint because a 4+ invulnerable save on this idiot vehicle that could run around and engage your stuff was move 14 was kind of gross. It's kind of grody. And so I think that this is fine. We'll probably still see Impulsors. I don't think that the base kind of paradigm of Space Marines will change very much. You'll just have a couple of these new and interesting vehicles, infantry units taking up the flanks. But, it's going to be a lot of Eradicators and some Dreadnoughts for long range damage, and then Impulsors bringing in infantry up the front. So Landspeeder Storms are in here. They got Assault Vehicle, which a lot of people are excited about. You can dump scouts out of them after they move, which is very, very cool. They also have, I think they have that Shock and Awe ability. I think so. Most of the time you take these just as a throwaway. They're like 50 points and they can run onto objective really fast. And I don't think that's going to change. They seem like they haven't really changed in cost. You just probably won't be bringing scouts to go into them, but I don't think that ever really mattered. You rarely saw scouts actually get into the Landspeeder Storm. Drop pods are here. Let's go ahead and read this because I think a couple things changed on their drop pod assault ability. You must start in Deep Strike, and you never count toward a limit. You never count towards a reinforcement limit. Okay. That's pretty good. It can be set up on first, second, or third movement phase, regardless of any mission rules. Any units embarked must immediately disembark, and more than 9 inches away from enemy models. Okay. So that's pretty good. So you could potentially like play full drop pod armies, right? Because you never count as being... you always will count as being below that 50% limit. Although, I don't think there's a boots rule in 9th edition. That's never come up for me, but I don't believe that there is. So you don't really lose anything for being tabled. Your opponent just gets to run around the table on turn 1, and that doesn't really matter. Stormhawks are mostly the same, it looks like. Flyers, it looks like have been hit relatively hard in 9th edition just because they can't really affect the table or aircraft in general. And look out if you're worried about those. If you're bringing aircraft, you gotta get worried about those hunters and stalkers. Stormraving gunships are here. They also make an appearance. For probably 300 points. I don't think you really want one of those. It is sort of interesting to see all these legacy data sheets to look at them in the with 9th edition in mind, because I think it's just sort of sad, knowing kind of how Space Marines play right now. And obviously a lot could change in this new codex, but I think it doesn't feel to me like there's a lot of combos that make these really work very well. Yeah, maybe that like +1 to hit aura. You could get a big +1 to hit aura on a bunch of repulsors or something. And you could smoke screen them, but you could just do it on dreadnoughts. And you could get reroll once to hit 2 off of your Smash Captain. I don't know. Well, a big part of it's going to be to see how the Forge World data sheets pan out, because that's where a lot of the dreadnought power comes out right now. And if those just get updated with the same rules, then I don't know if we see any of these tanks on the table. The Hammerfall Bunker is here. Again, kind of weird for Space Marines that want to be that are sort of flavorfully supposed to be a mobile assault force, to have this fixed emplacement. Although I guess it like drops from the sky, right? So maybe it like comes in with your drop pods and you can use it as a strong point. Sure, fine. Whatever. It has a heavy bolter array which fires 3 times. And shoots everything that it can see. Okay, so I was worried. I don't believe that I ever saw the stats for the bolter array. I was a little worried if it was like 9 shots and it shot everything on the table. Then it would be pretty scary. But only 3 shots a piece. That's a cool rule, but man, you're gonna plink at people instead of really hammering them for a bunch of. Instead of letting the hammer fall on them with a bunch of damage. So that, I don't know if that's going to be very good. It would be cool if you could deep strike this. I'm not really sure why you can't, to be honest. That's kind of annoying. It would be interesting if like you could deep strike it in a place where it's like your opponent can't hide very well, and then you get good coverage out of that defensive array ability. But doesn't look like there's any way to do that. So, I thought the whole idea was that it dropped from the sky. Why doesn't it drop from the sky? I guess it's weird putting bunkers places. It is T8, 14 wounds. It's very difficult to kill. So maybe they just don't want that available to be deep strike. But it is like 200 points. Let people have their fun. Let people drop their bolters, or drop their bunkers from the sky. So it has basically, it looks like a standard missile launcher, 2d6 blasts, or 2 strength 10 d6 damage crack missiles. But only had BS4. Ooh, okay, yeah. So hard to kill. You can't even mount troops in it. It's not a very good bunker if you can't put anybody inside. So I'm not really sure what the purpose of this thing is. I think they just wanted to make a cool terrain piece. I don't know. I don't think we'll be seeing Hammerfall bunkers on the table anytime soon. It is a good thing to hide your characters around, I guess. But whatever. You could just take a dreadnought. Just take a Redemptor dreadnought, I guess, every time. Weapon profiles. We don't really need to go over these, I don't think. There are probably some changes in here that I'm missing. Like Grav looks like going to flat 2 damage instead of D3, which is good. You don't need to re-roll those anymore. Hailfrost cannons are in, or Hellfrost cannons are in here, even though they'll probably only be included in the Space Wolf Codex supplement. Yeah, I'm not going to go through every single weapon profile, unfortunately. So if there are any changes that I'm missing, then we will just have to deal with that. Look at them all. Points values. We'll take a look at some points values. I think some of the important ones that we wanted to talk about. Lieutenant Reaver Armor, 75 points. That's pretty reasonable. Captain on bike. I do like that this feels a little bit more concise than the Munitorum Field Manual points levels, because they give you all of the potential options right next to where the unit is. So you don't have to flip between 7 different pages to create one unit. You're like, all right, I need my melee weapons, and then I need my war gear, and then the unit cost, and then garbage. So that's very nice. What do we want to take a look at? We want to take a look at let's take a look at heavy intercessors. They are 28 points a model, and so 140 base for the squad and 10 points for each heavy bolter that you take. Their extra weapons are free. So 140 for the unit is pretty good. Assault intercessors are 19. They did not change. But Thunderhammers went up 5 for infantry. But I think that they also are at, they're minus 20 for captains. So your smash captain's also a little bit cheaper. And you probably don't even need to take a storm shield anymore. So you can take a gun on that guy and you save a couple points. So the storm shield's 10. So you save 10 on the smash captain. A base captain is 85, 105. How much is a jump pack? 25. So he's 130. All right. That's pretty cheapsies. Keep him on the cheap, and he just gets a bolter or something, which is occasionally useful if he's not charging that turn. The chaplains, how much is a chaplain? Standard chaplain with a jump pack is 105. And the Crozius is free, it looks like. All right. So the chaplains didn't really change. Stormbolters went up to 5 for characters, it looks like. Huh. That's expensive. But, I mean, it is a pretty decent option, especially for the 2+ ballistic skill characters. Like, it's usually just 2 dead guardsmen every turn. Which is pretty nice when you're playing into a matchup where that matters. Although sometimes it just literally doesn't. But there were occasionally, instances, especially in 8th edition, if you took like sort of the character spam lists. I know Ultramarines did that a lot because they had a lot of really good unique characters, and and they also had a lot of good bolt gun relics, and you would plink like 5 or 6 wounds off of a vehicle just hitting it with all of your random storm bolters. There was one that shot, I think it was rapid fire 4, and it rerolled all its wound rolls. That was a really good storm bolter to have. And then you just have a bunch of AP1, like random plink shots. And then especially with old Master Artisans, that would go crazy. So yeah, looking through these troops options, tacticals we wanted to look at are 18 points a model, and standard intercessors are 20. Yeah, so for 2 more points a model, you get an extra attack and these, the more powerful weapons off of an intercessor squad. So there's really no reason to take tacticals unless you really, really want like a missile launcher or something in there. But yeah, for 10, I would spend that 10 points on intercessors every time. Plus you unlock that Primaris keyword, so they get access to transhuman physiology and gene rot might. So yeah. Interestingly, Thunderhammer's only 15 points for a tactical squad, whereas it's 20 for an intercessor. Because you're 1 less attack on that sergeant, so that makes a lot of sense. Grenade launcher went up to 5 points, which makes sense because you can fire it alongside your gun. But I think I would try to find points for that 5 points. That's a pretty high value shot, especially if you're running like salamanders and have that 1 reroll. Usually the 1 reroll on a single auto bolt rifle shot doesn't really matter, but it sure does on a crack grenade. So yeah, I mean I would take those grenade launchers every time. So for 105 points, you just get intercessors with grenades. That's pretty good. 125 if you take a Thunderhammer. So which other stuff did we want to talk about? Company veterans are 20 points a model for +1 attack. I guess that makes a lot of sense. They basically have the same profile as an intercessor. And then they have expanded war gear options, obviously. Aggressors we talked about are 40 or 45 with the frag storm, so they did not change, but they lost all of their abilities. So yeah, that is expensive for a unit without any special abilities. Probably drop aggressors right out of your list, unfortunately. Apothecaries are only 75. Primaris apothecaries here. Where are they? Maybe, oh, it's probably alphabetical, that's why. There it is, for 80. Okay, so 75 or 80 points for the apothecary. So that bumps him up. I think it's 20 points for the apothecary upgrade, so that bumps him up to 105 if you want that guy. Invictor Warsuits are 160. We wanted to talk about Stalker Hunters. I guess the biggest downside of anything in this heavy support slot is that you're directly competing with Eradicators. So Eradicators have not changed. They're still 40 points a model. Multi-melt is plus 5, or plus 10, or the heavy melter rifles plus 5. So, yeah, so 130 points per 3 with a multi-melta. Jury's still out if the multi-melta is better than the heavy rifle. I feel like it is, because it's 4 shots rather than 2 high value, but you're usually -1 to hit with the multi-melta. I don't know. Well, I think somebody will probably do the math, to be honest. But yeah, the Eradicators seem really gross, especially in units of 6 that you can combat squad. As soon as somebody reminded me of that, my mind exploded. Hunter Stalker, yeah, 110 for a Hunter Stalker is... Oh, this is not a very good picture right here. Is this the Stalker? 115. Yeah, it looks like it. 110 or 115 for toughness 8, 11 wounds with a pretty reasonable damage output. Unfortunately, that slot is going to be highly contested because you probably want Eradicators in there. So maybe you won't see those on the table just by virtue of the fact that they are not Eradicators, which is very sad. Some of the bigger stuff looks like Repulsor Executioner is coming in at 355 before you upgrade its gun. Standard Repulsor is 315 before you upgrade its gun. That's expensive. What about the Gladiators? Are Gladiators in here at all? Yeah, Gladiators are 200 to 250. Gladiator Reaper is probably the most playable one at, is that 210? Looks like. So, I mean, that's probably 215, 220 once you do a packet full of upgrades. But again, it's it's just going to fight with Eradicators. You can use Intercessors and Heavy Intercessors to fight infantry. I don't think you need a Reaper, especially since it can't reroll its hits. And you're just and you can use Eradicators to fight other stuff, and you're just going to be golden. I don't think you need that stuff. Vanguard Veterans we talked a little bit about. Looks like 19 points a model, but 21 with a jump pack. It's still pretty reasonable. A Storm Shield on them comes in at +4, so they have a 4+ invulnerable save, and they started at a 2+ armor. But that is 25 points a model. Ooh, that is pricey. So maybe you leave the Storm Shields at home. And you just... Can you take 2 chainswords on those guys? So they can have their bolt pistol replaced with 1 weapon from the pistol weapon list, 1 weapon from the melee weapon list, or a Storm Shield, maximum 1 per model. I imagine the Storm Shield... You can't take 2 Storm Shields, right? Because then you could get +2 to your saving throw. But, yeah. So you could replace... So the melee weapons list must have an Astartes Chainsword on it, right? I have to assume that would be looking down here. So you could take double chainswords on these guys. I feel like that's just the way to go. Maybe if like a power maul is not so bad, then you take that. Yeah, melee weapons is right here. Yeah, so you could replace the bolt pistol with a chainsword. You could also take... I think some people took mauls or axes. Power axes and a chainsword, so they would swing once with the chainsword for free, and then all the rest of their attacks would be at the higher profile. Looks like power mauls get you to strength 7, which is a pretty good place to be at. Power axe is probably AP2 at +2 strength, right? Where's an axe at? Power axe, yeah, +2 strength AP2. How many points are those though? Because the chainsword's free. Vanguard Veterans. I'm really happy. I have to say, I'm really happy with this layout of the war gear.
So I don't have to switch back and forth when I'm looking at all these. Looks like axes and mauls are 3 points. So that is it gets a little pricey. So maybe just keep them at 21 points and take 2 chainswords on them. So they swing 4 attacks on the charge. Is that right? No, 5 attacks on the charge, right? Yeah, they're base 3. They get 4 attack, 5 attacks on the charge. And I guess it probably makes sense to double check whether that is actually whether that actually works in case the chainsword rule changed. Astartes chainsword is probably in the beginning of the melee weapons. Yeah, each time it makes 1 additional attack with this weapon. Yeah, so if you have 2 of them, you'll make 2 additional attacks. So they start at 2 attacks. They get +2 for the chainswords for 4. They get +1 for shock assault for 5. Yeah, that's good. At AP1, AP2 if they're in assault, and then maybe +1 to wound with either a chaplain next to them or maybe they're playing Blood Angels or something. That seems really good. I don't know. It seems really solid. Okay, Invader ATVs talked about a lot. 85 points with a multi-melta or just a Gatling cannon for 80. Pretty strong. Also, Inceptor squads are in here. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's going to be it for talking about this stuff. Is there anything else in this book that we need to talk about? No, there's just a glossary. So that is going to be, that's the entirety of the Space Marine Codex. We just ran through all of it, talked about a lot of stuff, and how things should change from 8th edition. And I'm going to go ahead and close this out. This video is going to be forever. This is a long video, but we went through the entire Codex. I will go through the Necron Codex later this week. I do have a copy of that as well, so we can talk about that. And yeah, that's what's up. So I want to thank everybody for watching. For everybody who made it to this part of the video, this was very rambly, but I wanted to get something out talking about this Codex beyond just the first impressions that I had in my last video, and so I want to appreciate everyone who got to the end. Big shout out to my patrons. I'll put them up on the screen here. You can join them at patreon.com/tacticaltortoise, and otherwise just keep it classy. Stay tuned for more coverage on these new codexes coming later this week, and obviously come join us in the Discord and play some games. We got tournaments running. Any new T5S2 pods that'll be starting, we'll be using these codexes starting next week, and you get early access to those if you're a patron, so that's really cool. And obviously, starting next week as well, our Combat Patrol events will also be using these new rules. On top of that, so if you want to play the new codexes, come join us and play a bunch of games at 40K. Other than that, have a good one, everybody. Keep it classy, folks, and have happy wargaming.